Right, we're here for another episode of Snake and Banter. Our guest for this one is going to be Vince. If you're really old school, I realise this joke doesn't even play with the Zoomers. If you're really old school, obviously he used to be known as Budget Anders. But one, in the modern day, even Anders is Budget Anders. That's actually a mixture of a joke about Anders' career and where the industry's at. And then two, that also isn't even that great a reference because Anders doesn't do every event nowadays. So it's like, oh. And then thirdly, he also used to work with Dust and... What was the other one? Didn't you briefly do another game? Oh, you did Valorant for a little while, right? You did Valorant at one point in time, early on in the game, though?
Very, very short amount of time, yeah. Like for a couple of months, dipped my toe in the pool. But yeah, I did for a little bit, not as long as Dust. And
then what was the most recent events you've done? I know, like, for example, I mean, sadly, it turned out you worked at the event. You did, like, the remote stream of the Elisa desk, me and Maui did, right? Sadly, I saw when the announcement was, I thought that meant you were coming, but what other stuff have you done recently in CS?
I just did the PGL Astana event with Anders. I did the, I guess, like, technically the RMRs for the Dallas Major, which were all online as well. So I've been busy, trying to get more active, of course. But yeah, it's kind of rough out there right now. I'm not gonna lie.
Indeed. Okay. Sounded a bit dark. You know, wanted more of an update.
Why does your Liquipedia not show the Astana event? Well,
it doesn't.
No, Liquipedia needs to get on that.
Yeah,
I know you're there. Yeah,
update it.
Yeah, they need to fix that. They need to fix that.
Exactly.
One of them's watching.
Sorry. I'm a moron. It wasn't Astana, it was Bucharest.
Oh, Bucharest. There you go. Right? That makes more sense.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, you're right. Okay, so it was Bucharest. Okay. To be fair, though, those PGLs were pretty quick succession. So that was itself only, like a month and a half ago, or 2 months ago. We've had them pretty quick, pretty thick and fast. Okay, so we always do on this show, the guest starts first, much like Fight Club. Except we are not going to, hopefully we won't destroy something beautiful in this episode. So let's start, Vince. What is your good point? What's good about CS at the moment?
I'm kind of excited by the fact that Valve has bought/acquired Cash. Because it's a map that's not been played, obviously, in the competitive market for 5+ years at this stage. It's heavy nostalgia for me as well. I love that map. I still dearly miss it to this day. Obviously, you have some classic moments like the s1mple graffiti.
If people don't know, really, this will sound weird, Vince, but I can actually confirm from playing CS with you, that's one of your favourite maps, right?
Yeah, we used to play a lot of Cash together. That's true. A big fan of Cash, and like honestly, this is kind of wrapped in a bit of a blanket of stagnance, I guess you could say, because the map pool right now for me isn't fantastic. There's a couple maps in it that I'm not as keen to watch, to commentate. And so if Cash did come back, which I think this is a pretty solid chance that it will, with Valve obviously acquiring it, I would love to see it in the active pool as fast as possible. I think it's sorely missed. I remember being a massive nerd going back and watching the VP days, the Virtus.pro days, like they've had a massive fall from grace. Watching Snacks, for example, just be this unbelievable talent in checkers, and it's always stuck with me. It's just a hard hit of nostalgia, and I'd love to see it back as soon as possible. In terms of the map pool right now, though, I'm not sure if you guys would agree. I'd be really interested, actually, to pick your brains on this, because for me, I'm falling out of love with Inferno pretty quick. Like, it's a difficult game to watch a lot of the time. It's a lot of saving. It's difficult to retake on sites. I wouldn't be against the idea of Cash in and Inferno out, to be honest, or maybe Mirage. What are your guys' takes on this? And also, would you be against the idea of 2 maps in and 2 maps out? Is that too much?
I have said on some show, I forgot what, that Inferno's become my least favorite to watch. The funny thing is I actually like playing Inferno still, but I really have fallen out of love with Inferno in a watching environment, just because the retaking is very difficult. I find that the CTs still have a hard time maintaining information, because the things you need to do for CT side information are like reaggress bracket, which is okay, but reaggressing banana, you rarely ever see a CT team retake past the half wall. You can clear car out with that smoke that lands on the half wall, and then a molly right there at the car, and then you kind of clear that. But the thing is that the T can just be behind the half wall the whole time. He could just be standing right there behind the half wall, and then they just retake it after all of your nade smoke clears, and then you're just in a bad position because the only spots you can be are at the corner or at sandbags, and those are only so good for maybe getting 1 kill, if even that. So that's been my vote for the map that I find the weakest. But I've also said that I think the map pool in general is very strong right now. It's a lot ever since Vertigo's left. This has been, in my eyes, the best map pool since pre-Vertigo days, which I think was 2018 or maybe it was early 2019, one or the other. But for Cash, I would enjoy seeing it simply because I would want to see how the mid fights go. I think that one of the problems I had with Cash in the past was that so often you could boil the round down to this in terms of a flowchart. The T's would throw cross smokes mid, or they would throw that window smoke and the highway smoke. They would take mid. They would take mid like every single round. And then the CTs have to either push A main or B main so that they're not just getting crunched from highway or from vents. And now, because CTs can play back against those smokes so well with breaking them or shooting through them, I actually think that the fight is going to be way more engaging in middle. I think it's going to be a fun brawl, not entirely dissimilar to what we get on Ancient. Ancient's a little bit more of like just a clusterfuck of people just running through flashes and mollies and smokes, and kind of who was looking at the ground or away from the flash to spin around to try to get a kill. It's a little bit too much of that now for me, but I feel like with the boost and the kind of how slow sometimes people want to play, it's not going to be as much of just first 10 seconds, everything is done. I'd be interested in seeing Cash play out. And on the point of 2 maps in, 2 maps out, I'm totally game for that. I'm totally game for that. Or I'm game for just every single major cycle, 1 in, 1 out, but we know it in advance.
I'll do it in reverse order. My problem with the 2 maps in angle is an obvious one, which is, in theory, I don't mind the idea. It just depends what the maps are, obviously. Like, at the moment, my issue would be, I don't know that they have the maps to put in that'll be good. Because one thing I don't like about how we currently do it is, even though they do that thing where it goes into, like, active duty first, no pros ever play it until you put it in the real map pool. And unfortunately, that tends to mean that you don't really have any clue how good a map is until, like, 3 months into it being played in matches. Like, the joke is, I think you can only now actually make judgments about train. Like, you saw it for the first month and a half. First of all, people did the same thing. You don't play it. Then when people did play it, it's like, well, now it's so scuffed as to who's playing it in what scenario. Like, if people already play it as like a third map decider where we're both playing chicken with the veto, then is that the same as like us both having practiced it? Isn't that almost like you're playing like a war of attrition? Like, oh, we'll just both go to the map neither of us know and then roll the dice. Like, it's almost like a randomizer effect. So my bigger issue would just be what the maps are. If the maps are good, like if, for example, you have something like, hey, the other map coming in is like a rework of Overpass, then hey, maybe we do put 2 in and 2 out. I'd sort of be in favour of that. I also think a detail that's really misunderstood is people do that thing where they get conditioned to think that the way that we've done it in the past is just the way it has to be. Well, it's not like God came down and said, right, it has to be one map and it has to be one that like Valve has reworked and you have to like gradually remove them, and the only one that hasn't been removed yet is like, you know, that thing we all do where we try and like intuit the reasons why they remove one. One of the things I've never understood is, why does it even have to be that they go in and then go out and it takes years between? Why couldn't it even be like seasons in a year? Maybe you could have like the first, because obviously we have 2 seasons currently with the major cycle. What if it's like this? What if it is 2 in and 2 out, Maui, but like a map can return from the last season when it comes in as the next one? So like let's say I just took your conversation there, and look, I actually don't agree on the Mirage one. That's one that I just always have a soft spot for. But let's say Mirage and Inferno, those are 2 maps that people have complained about. Let's say we take those 2 out. What if that means though that in the next season when we take another 2 out, maybe Mirage comes back, or maybe Inferno's reworked it? You know, if we did it something like that, if there's a compromise element, I think it could be done. To go all the way back to Cash, I still don't really understand why this map ever left the map pool. Even though it was one that was complained about sometimes, I always thought that just like Mirage, you'll notice not that many people tended to permaban this map. It tended to be one that, and I know this will sound weird, but I've always thought, much like in life itself, people's actions tell you a lot more often than what they say with their words, because you can have all sorts of, you know, what you imagine people think of you, what you'd like to be thought of as. Is this a popular sentiment? Is it not? But the point is, I've often made this case, the real reason you knew maps like Vertigo sucked is it was the most permabanned map, it was the least played map, it was the map that like barely anyone ever tried to pick. Even when they did, they were nearly always weird underdogs trying to find an angle, almost like I'm saying, trying to make it a roll the dice scenario where we remove other elements of CS and just give ourselves a crazy chance to win. So the problem is, I don't think people's actions on some of those maps suggested. I never saw that on Cash. I never saw it as a map that like everyone couldn't play or had no room. I always thought it was quite a good map. For me, it really really was. It's funny because if you remember, once upon a time, Dust 2 left the pool. So to me, I always thought, actually, I mean, people now say Mirage because of Face It, but I actually thought Cash was a decent replacement for a Dust 2. It was a map that had like mainly skill-based. You notice it's a lot about like how good you are at like crushing the site, like a Virtus.pro type approach. A load of retakes. I always thought like these maps are just good playable maps. In fact, if anyone doesn't know, the reason I made that reference with Vince earlier is the 3 most played maps in Europe, if you played on Face It, was Dust 2 if it was in the pool, but then Mirage and Cash were the other 2. Those are the 3 that almost everyone was willing to play. And in fact, I'll even say, doesn't that really suggest what the map is like? You can play it as a pickup. Everyone knows if you played back in the day, the old train or overpass, those are death with a pickup. Like no one can make the comms. There's no tactics being played. I think to me, maps like Dust 2, Mirage and Cash have like a fundamental quality about CS that everyone can pick up and it's kind of like easy to play. Whereas like the difference is other maps, the cobblestones of the world, that's all about like what's the utility meta like, how tactical are teams, are we in an era where it's stale? So essentially, I'm with you. I do think when I saw this announced, I hope this is a road for this map to come back. I do think, and I've always referenced this, the one fuck up he did do was when he did his own rework, he did that weird texture rework where it went from being a really grey sort of industrial map to this like weird like junk, almost as though the same map had been overgrown by like weeds and stuff. And I just thought that
like
never,
The Last of Us hit it
for whatever reason. That just never played well with me. Like I don't think that looked very good. And unfortunately, I actually think it even did minor problems. Like it made visibility harder and silly things like that. You know. So if we could have something akin to what the old Cash was, I feel like it would have a place in the meta. In terms of should we remove Inferno, you know what? This is a world first. I've always said in the past I would never remove Inferno, but I know what you mean. A mixture of what CS2 is and how the util works and how the economy works. I think Inferno, in that sense, might be the most restricted map. Because you are right, it is the worst map ever for people saving, where if that was like, funny enough, a Cash or a Dust 2, that would definitely be a retake. That would be like a 3v3 retake or a 3-on-4 retake. Like, the worst one ever is, if people don't know, in the history of all versions of Counter-Strike, one of the maps that is considered the most winnable at a numbers disadvantage was always the small site on Inferno. Just like the small site on B, these are the ones that you always think as T's. If we can get in there, even with one less man, we can win this as like a 2v4, 2v5. But similarly, you always go for the retake. Whenever you get to that one, because I think the small site in Inferno is criminal for the saves. That is the map that people just call the save the second they're smoked out. Like, I do think that ruins pro games. So I wouldn't be adverse to some of these moves, actually. Although I will say, I will throw in there again. I think at this point in time, unless something changes about Train, I think that all should be on the short list. For me, that hasn't quite yet crystallized as like a proper map. I still don't really know what I enjoy about people winning it or what the dynamic is. Some of it is just like, I feel like random timing attacks or something, you know. So I'm still waiting to see on that one. But no, I actually, put it this way, what I agree with about the sentiment at the point at the beginning is, if you notice, I'm not as trusting in Valve to put a brand new map I've never heard in before. At least I know the essentials of what Cash make up, so I'd be willing to give it a try. I think it had something in the past that was valuable. I'm with you.
Yeah, I think it goes back to a point that you raised as well, when the whole train situation, that was another map that people just never played. And that's why it got removed in the first place. I know some people were disappointed and upset about it at the time, but the stats didn't lie. Like, it was just massively banned. It was barely ever played. And to go back to the Inferno, like, fortunately, and I probably will mention VP later on in this video, but fortunately, when James used to play with VP on Inferno, it was an absolute disaster to watch, dude. Like, every round on CT side was a save instantly. It like from an entertainment viewpoint as a caster, like, your job is to try and make the games as exciting, as interesting as possible. How do you make that interesting? Like, from a narrative viewpoint, it's garbage to watch a lot of the time, and that's kind of where I'm coming from. Like you said, like, Cash also has a lot of similarities to Dust 2 when I think about the layout of the map. You have a mid, you have 2 sites, you have ways of branching into the sites through middle. Middle control is super important, and so I think it's another reason it's so easy to pick up and play for a lot of teams, and also the casual players that are out there making up the player base. And that's another reason why I'm excited about this, because I think it's more accessible than a map, you know, like Inferno, when you're learning the game and it's like, well, I'm stuck behind a smoke for 5 years and I've been naded 3 times. Like, it's not that fun to play, to pick up as a new player. And I've got some friends that are learning CS right now and they can't stand Inferno. They're done with it.
Sure. I will also say as well, I actually think if you just want a meta point about Inferno, kind of like Maui was making, I also do think in itself, it's funny because Inferno also used to be a map that you could sort of play in a POG. I think that became an unplayable map because essentially people who knew pro meta utility are like literally 10 times better than anyone who's just a noob. Like if you don't know how to take the banana with you, it's a waste of time even playing with that player. Like that just destroys the game before you've even played it. So no, I'm with you on that one. Right, let's move on then. Maui, what is your good point?
My good point is that I was very taken aback to find a giant YouTuber made a long form video on the new player experience, and I thought it was really good. So it's mostly about that. Richard and I touched upon this actually in the grand final desk at Astana in the very opening segment. The fact that NakeyJakey, which is a ridiculous username, I'll be honest, but he made a video where he, as an American, just kind of jumped into Counter-Strike in the last 5 or so months and has just grinded up the elo ladder. And he talked about his learning experience. He talked about what playing it is like in North America. You know, he's just got a Prime account, nothing crazy. So there are cheaters in a handful of the games that he's playing. And but then he kind of went back and forth with the learning of a competitive discipline. And this is really, it's nice to see that CS2 is appealing enough. And I'm not saying it's perfect, and I don't think that the new player experience is something that other games should really look at and try to copy, but it allowed him, along with some of his friends, to pick up what we invest our lifeblood into, and just pick up a new game. And like the way that he was able to take all of kind of the check marks, or tick off all the check marks or the boxes of what it's like to pick up any new sport. First you're learning really fast, then you kind of start hitting ceilings. You have to break through those ceilings by learning something new about the game. The fact that sometimes you're carried by your team, sometimes your team lets you down, sometimes you need to like take a step back so you can be more introspective and reflective, and then level up your game in a different way. And the way that he went through it's this is kind of a good point in a couple facets, or it's one that the video itself is really good. If people want to look it up, just look up NakeyJakey, how Counter-Strike took over my life. And the second point is that the new player experience is not perfect, but it's inviting enough for a guy that really just cares mostly about game design. Like, I've watched a bunch of his other videos in the past. I remember watching a lot of his videos over the last, no joke, maybe 9 or so years, where he just releases 3 to 5 video essays per year about things like Rockstar's game design, Naughty Dog's game design. Like he does so many that are just kind of about single player games, but then he actually, for some reason, took a liking. And also it reminded me, oh yeah, the core gameplay of Counter-Strike is so good that it's not a game where you're going to just jump in and be like, oh, bullshit ability. Oh, I have to learn the meta. Oh, I have to learn this. It's like the lessons you learn in Counter-Strike from day 5 are probably going to help you become the player you are on day 1000. And that's, to me, the beauty of the game. And his whole video just reminded me of how great the game is that we devote so much of our time to.
Did you see this video, Vince? If you don't, there's no dislike. If people don't know, we don't know the points before the show. So did you happen to see this one?
Yeah, I have seen the video, and I honestly echo a lot of what Maui said. I think it also, the ending of that video in particular really struck a chord with me. It was quite moving, actually, because it went into his friendships. Like, basically, through the video, you find out that he was kind of introduced to Counter-Strike through his friends, and it's been kind of like a home beacon that they've always shared, no matter where they lived, no matter how far apart they were. He's always kept in base and contact with his friends through Counter-Strike. And so it was this idea of nostalgia hit me, because I remember going back to like my Call of Duty days. That's the game I started off with, and going into League of Legends, etc. I was always playing CS, but like my main game changed a few times. And the people that you meet and the communities that you get to be a part of, and you get to learn things about people from Thailand and New Zealand and Argentina and all these places that you never thought you'd meet people from. And it's just it's a really heartwarming and just a reminder, like Maui said, not just that Counter-Strike actually is a phenomenal game and just the best FPS game out there by far, but also the connections that you make with people are very real, and they're potentially lifelong. It was a really good video, honestly, and he also didn't shy away from some of the negative aspects of Counter-Strike either, like the gambling elements with the box openings, and obviously the pretty rocky and dodgy roads that we've traveled down as a result of those things. So I thought it was an excellent video. I agree with Maui on this.
I will say this isn't my style of video. I'm not like, in that sense, here's what's weird about me. Or I could get like really emotional about something that to other people is superficial, like Nico never won the major in CS. That sort of gets me, oh, that's tragic, isn't it? But then like, I don't really give a fuck about like, oh, but the human connection with it, like, yeah, whatever, mate. It's not my mate. I don't give a fuck. So what's weird is I am hot and cold like that. I am quite a sort of like unusual person. But so I wasn't a huge fan of this video. Like I didn't watch it all. I skipped through parts of it. But I did think like a couple of elements I will address is one, like Maui said, I did think actually the early part did do a good job of showing what it's like when a casual person tries to enter games like Counter-Strike. Because to me, the reason these games, I put it this way, I'm always shocked that CS has the player base it does now, and that it can be so high still, and that it still gets like informed by majors and new maps coming out and stuff. Because I always think to myself, to me, it's not actually that great at a casual game. Like this guy's describing, it's more a game where to even play CS means to become a CS person, and for it to be sort of a semi-regular part of your life. It's not really a game you pick up for fun, like FIFA with a mate, or like a new beat-em-up game or something, or anything that you just play flavour of the month. Think about when Among Us was like the big thing for 3 months or something. Like, it's not like that where people do it just for funsies. To me, when you start this, it's like doing like a martial art or something. Like, you might not become like a professional, but it's going to be like a regular part of your life, and it's going to be part of the thing where you're going to build a social circle. I thought that part was a good job. Like, first of all, I agree with you, Maui. He sort of showed the experience of like, it's not that you just play it and you go, this is awesome, hey. It's like you hit plateaus and you hit moments where it's like, actually, does everyone cheat? Or how do I get past this level where everyone Ferrari... I thought he did a good job sort of showing that aspect, that like it has like its own sort of like, you have to have a sort of a work ethic to keep playing and get good and not just phone your time. And then also, to touch on the thing Vince said, I actually think the most underrated part of esports or competitive games, and in my opinion, the game devs have ignored this, because in this sense, I do think as an entitled esports person, they sort of owe us in the esports scene. You know, they've always behaved as if they built it and then we came and they did it all and we're just like passengers, or we're like guests at a dinner table. No. If this, in that analogy, in this dinner table, we started bringing dishes, and in fact, we made signature dishes that people now come to the dinner table, your restaurant, for to play. And I think people wouldn't come and play the game anymore, because I do think, I'm sure you've all in your own life experienced what I'm about to describe, the people in this call and people watching, which is, haven't we all had friends that we only know through CS who they wouldn't actually ever play CS again? That would have been a game they played for a year or two, would have been a flash in the pan, but they come back to play with us, to specifically play a game with us, because it's the shared point of contact we all had. It's maybe where we even originally met them, or even better, sometimes maybe, yeah, that friend doesn't play CS anymore, but you still have him on Steam or whatever, and now you play Among Us when it's COVID time, or you play Battlefield when that game comes out, or you play whatever insert new game, Valorant, you go and play that game with them. Like, in that sense, yeah, that basically, this is almost like where you build your little raiding crew of friends, isn't it, from these sorts of games and these communities. And I do think that part's really underrated, because for me, not only have we all had the experience of you watch like a Vitality game and then you go, I should fire up the game, and then the joke is 5 minutes in, you go, oh shit, I'm not Zimu, am I? Actually, this isn't as good as I thought it would be. And also, spoiler, that teammate isn't Rob, so actually he's the guy not watching my back. But in the similar vein, I do get the sense that that's what happens every time there's a major, that's why like the player base refreshes, and then you bring out a new map and it refreshes, and you bring out a new... I do think actually the esports side hasn't just been marketing. It's like a thing that sort of like almost maintains the lifeblood of the scene. It gives you a little new injection of life every now and then. And so I don't think CS is a game. Remember, it started as a bloody mod at like the beginning of the 2000s. That wouldn't even have lasted 3 or 4 years. Like the idea, think about how long CS 1.6 lasted. It lasted over 10 years. CSGO was still going until recently, until they made the switch. That game looked super old compared to all the other FPSs that came out. So to me, I always think the esports side is underrated. So what he did is he didn't touch on that part really, because he was more on the casual, like playing, but like, that's like one step beyond what he's talking about that in that video. That's like just becoming the move from semi-casual to hardcore player, which I think everyone who watches these shows will have done. So no, I think on that aspect, it did like touch on, even if tangentially, things I am interested in, like those ideas. That's one of the reasons why I have always pushed back against the idea that, the game devs gave us everything. It's like, we gave back a lot too, even just by being a community, by being people. And by the way, as you say, introduce your own friends to the game, make friends through the game. And if there wasn't like a competitive side in this aspect, put it this way, if the only way you could play the game was like you had to just press the matchmaking button, nobody in this call would even play this game anymore. You know what I mean? I actually think the social and the community aspect has been an enormous part. And if anything, you could argue, eventually you even get a little bit like sort of over the game, but the social aspect is what keeps you there. The amount of times you'll still play the extra game or play a game of people around, or if someone asks you to, or it just becomes, of course, we all get that aspect. We don't verbalise it much, which, by the way, to tie it all back in again, is why people, I think, enjoy content like this. You like to hear someone, put it this way, Maui, I won't make some crazy allusion to Proust or something, because I'll lose all these fuckers. They wouldn't even read Proust the manga. But basically, it's the idea that you actually get someone verbalises an experience you've had, but you haven't heard anyone else talk about. I think that is actually quite a universal thing we all look for in life, is people who can share our experience and give us a sense of like, oh, someone else saw it that way. I saw it that way too, but I haven't heard anyone say that.
Yeah, that's it. It related a lot with my own experience and even my current experience, because obviously I have to travel to all these events, and I can't keeping up with some of my friends from back home who I started playing Counter-Strike with, like the guys that I was playing. No joke, I'm still playing Counter-Strike with guys that I've played nearly 20 years ago at this point, like 2005, 2006. Actually, that is 20 years ago.
It's why the joke, if you remember, I know people make this joke, actually, believe it or not, in the NBA community and the HUD community, of like, they do it with like Xbox. But one of the real things that you're all going to be, this is a Proust angle right here, mate, that you can all relate to. Isn't the biggest tragedy of all time when you go on Steam and you look in the offline friends and you see that guy where it says he hasn't been online for like 9 years? Oh, that breaks your heart. Oh, that's like he died in war. That's like, pour out a 40 for him. Yeah. He died in Vietnam. He never made it back with the rest of us. Stand by me, or whatever that fucking song was. Yeah. It's like, that's the feeling in it. We've all had that. And by the way, anyone who actually did really die, you look at theirs like it's their grave, mate. You go up to it like, oh, bloody hell, offline for 11 years. Gone too soon. Yeah, that's exactly. I'm making like a joke. That's real. We all feel that, right?
I mean, the guys that from back then, is that the only reason we get on to play, because we're pretty much all in our 30s now. Yeah, we're all in our 30s. Like we have, everybody has jobs, wives / girlfriends. Like they got social lives, hobbies, whatever. But we get on, and this is why we play ESEA still, because we can't on our own say, hey guys, let's all queue up at 7 p.m. on this day or whatever. It's like, we need some stakes. We actually need stakes. So that's why we pay for ESEA still, league season, and we're just playing ESEA main, and we don't practice, but we just show up, and because we have, like, no joke, like 10 years of experience each plus, we're just in ESEA main playoffs because we just know how to play off of each other. We have really good fundamentals. Like, we've learned so much over the years. We don't, like, yes, IGL, and we communicate pretty well, but it's not like we have to, like, we don't have like insta nades. We don't have like, we're not geeking out on things like that. We just play, but off of fundamentals and feeling, and everybody's got like a baseline level of aim because we're playing a couple times a week. So we're not like falling off a cliff. And you would think that a lot of these like Zoomer kids, like when we play like a team of 20-year-olds or like teenagers, we're surprised at like, oh, it's because we beat them with teamwork. We beat them with fundamentals. We beat them because we create setups and we communicate in clutch moments, like a 2v2. We'll just be like, hey, let's just double swing together. And we can tell like these kids that definitely can out aim us, they don't out teamwork us. And these little moments are like, watching the Jakey video was like, yeah, like you can learn the game in so many different aspects. And I feel like Thorin and I, we don't cater to the new player at all. Like nothing we do. Like if anything, we cater to the most hardcore fans because even then, like, let's just bring up another, like an HLTV confirmed caters to a more casual audience because they're mostly just saying like high rating player good. Oh, this might be a little bit concerning, but we're like, I'm just saying like Skulls should not play tier 1, like shit like that. Like we go so hard so fast, but this video just kind of warmed my heart and like, oh yeah, people are just playing this game for the first time in the last week. Like I don't think about them at all.
Also, I've always thought an underrated social component, Vince knows this when I play, I can do that thing where I can simultaneously be in the game and just express organically, but then I can also come out and take like wherewithal of the situation. So like the joke is, I actually find it cathartic to play the game, and then when that kid who's way better than me and definitely is just better than me in the game doesn't cheat, Ferrari peeks and bangs my head off, going, how did he fucking, look at the pre-fire though, like, and then 1 second later though, I go, it probably isn't cheating to be fair, but it feels really good to have friends on the call and tell them that the guy's definitely cheated, and then them just to gaslight you and go, yeah, I think he got me earlier too, and you're like, yeah, tell you what, have a look how many hours he got. Oh, loads. Well, whatever, he could have been cheating and all. You just do it to get through the fucking moment, don't you? It's just the excuse, the shared lie that we all need, that we're not just shit at the game and boomers at this point. But we are all boomers. And also, people don't know, you can attest to this, Vince, the real reason I think it's a travesty that I got fucked over that one time when I should have been on that show match, in fact, I've had a couple of majors where I should have been on the show match, is just like on Vince's stream, motherfucker, you don't even know what you're missing, guys. I would have gone for every no-scope. I don't even use the scope on the AWP. Are you fucking kidding me? I would actually, if you don't know, you don't even know, I would go 1 to 12 if the one is me hitting like a jumping no-scope on s1mple. I don't give a fuck, bro. So I love that style too. I just go for it. Just go for it.
Can confirm. The other thing as well, like genuinely, I'm not just saying this, because I know that you don't take like CS super seriously anymore, and like you just dabble and you have a bit of fun. Thorin is surprisingly good with the AWP.
I'm all right.
I've got to say, like sometimes he lands shots back when we were playing, and I was like, "Holy shit! Like, how I didn't even see that guy. Like, what? You got the flicks, dude. You definitely see the Quake aim there."
No, the problem is part of it is though, like that. Like I've always just gone for every shot in the game because I just play for funsies. So, by the way, that will make you way better at doing shit like that. Also, I'm not saying this is like a mutual glazing session, but actually, if people don't know, of all the people who work in talent who weren't pros, Vince might actually be the best at the game. Have you ever played with him, Mau? He's actually pretty good at the game. He can do all. Put it this way, he can do all the like crouching fucking spray. Really good at like the technique stuff.
Vince is totally a rock when we do talent 10-mans. He's an early.
Good aim, good spray. Yeah. Which is the area you ready, Vince. In that area, Anders is budget Vince, because Anders is fucking dog shit at the game. And he even knows it. He even does that thing, like stupid laugh when he's fucking buying an AWP and deagle again. Like, I tell him, why are you even buying a deagle? You can't even get the AWP shot, Anders. Don't buy the deagle. Why is it? All you need to know about Anders is he always buys a full deagle with the AWP as well. As though he's actually like Kenny S. Like, well, I might need this if I'm fucking around on the 3 kill. Like, I haven't even seen you get 2 kill, mate. What are you talking about?
Importantly about Vince, I just remembered, is like, it's not even just very solid player, it's attitude. It's like, I can't believe how many people... he tryhards like a motherfucker. We're in an industry of egos, actually. I can't understand how many people are hard to play with, but Vince is the easiest guy to play with. If you want to do something, he's going to help do it. He's going to find ways to support the play or be part of the play. Yeah, that kind of stuff. The intuition of just, oh, okay, we're going to do this push, and he'll ask, should I flash high right for you guys? Shit like that. Like, that goes farther. And also, if we're getting down, he's not going to be the one that's sighing on the microphone and saying or blaming. But Vince is not a blamer. He's not a blamer.
Bro, when they can. I won't get into it too much because this is a can of worms, isn't it? But like sometimes you're playing and the vibes are good going into the game and they're not so good coming out of it. So yeah, some people definitely take it a lot more seriously than others. That's for sure.
Whereas actually, I'll just totally tell you, I'm definitely not the best teammate. You know what? If you annoy me in a fucking stack, in fact, there's actually a clip that Anders once linked. I didn't even see this. Right? Apparently, they got clipped on his stream. There's a stream where me, Anders, and someone else, some girl that like Anders knew was playing right on the mic. And then at one point, some guy in our stack goes, "Can you drop me an AWP?" Or something like that. And I go like, "Yeah, if you want." And then because I said, if you want, this girl, who we don't even know, just some random girl at the stack goes, well, I think he does want it because he asked. And then I go, well, actually, technically, he just said, could I drop it up? Sort of a philosophical question, just like I could say to you, could you shut the fuck up right now? No, you don't have to. It's just a request. Again, just go look it up if you can find it. It's a pearl of a clip. But yeah, I have to understand. I keep it real. Some would say too real, but that's enough about my career. That could even be the title of my biography. I keep it real. Some would say too real. With a foreword by Richard Lewis. Written by AI. He'll be dead at that point in time, of course.
By esports.
Yeah, of course. The artist formerly known as esports. I'll go back to Thorin eventually. Right, anyway, that's enough about NakeyJakey. I like the way someone called Mauisnake had the audacity. It's got a fucking weird name. Mauisnakey, Mauijakey. Okay, whatever you say, mate. Whatever you say.
What's funny is in the video, his name is like Snake something.
Oh, right, okay.
Actually, his in-game name has...
He's infringing on your branding. Exactly. Get the fuck out. Well, our lawyers will contact you immediately. Have that video taken down. Right, let's go on. So my good point for this episode is going to be, despite the shit behaviour of their social media admin, it actually is going to be heroic. I actually do think the two teams to me that I thought got mega slept on at the beginning of the year, because they're both very similarly composed teams, were the Heroic and the NIP lineups. I remember seeing both of them and going, these aren't bad rosters actually. Like, they're obviously gambles on like less big names or whatever, but they've got like a mixture of like one or two names. Obviously they've got Snappy on the NIP one, and they've got Shush on that one. On this one they've got people like fucking what do you call some Pious, who obviously everyone will know, etc. So, like, what I like about this roster, X-Floud, if you remember, I thought he was pretty good on Sangar. Like, if you look at this squad, bear in mind, it's obviously like not a budget roster, but like you've gambled on the smaller names who essentially have like maybe their game is bigger than their name. I always thought this actually should be a pretty decent roster. Actually, look at it, like these are decent gambles to take. Like, these are players where if you're taking money, because remember they sold their Quarter Falcons, if you're taking that money and trying to reinvest into another squad, this isn't a bad set of gambles. Like, it was obvious to me you could reclaim Sun Pius. If people don't know, the LNZ guy basically took almost the exact same route as NPL from Na'Vi. They were both the fifth man in a bigger squad where they had to do the shit rolls, and so it tanked their rep. Then they both went outside of that and became IGLs and actually looked like they do a pretty decent job. Like, if I look at this squad, it's not bad. And if you look at their run at this tournament, I'm sorry, this is actually a pretty nice run. Like, think about this. In the opener, they beat Aurora. Yes, Aurora certainly lose to a lot of teams, but Aurora can also be a good team. Like, there's a reason why, actually, they're in the playoffs. Like, that was a legit series where they beat them, by the way. Then they lost to Falcons. But, like, actually, that's pretty legit to take a map off Falcons and take them in 3 games. Like, a lot of people would struggle with that firepower. Remember, that is a team that's got your former players, and even. Then they beat FaZe Clan. Now, certainly, FaZe Clan could have won that game, but that was a pretty interesting matchup. You're playing against s1mple, massive. That could intimidate a lot of you. And then finally, you did lose to Aurora in close fashion. Like, what's not to like about this run? Like, bear in mind, in CS right now, we have a whole bunch of events where sometimes the teams that go to some of these events have no chance to win a map, no chance to win a series. Like, they're just also runs. This team looks to me like they can be just a touch below like a Gamer Legion. I don't think they're going to be a playoff team often, but they look like they can give like the teams that are in like positions like 5 to 10 or 5 to 12, they can give these teams a game, and they could probably beat them every now and then. They can actually make them play real CS. I kind of enjoyed watching this team. I actually thought it was a canny little squad of players. What do you think, Vince?
No, I completely agree with that. I actually have them in my pick'ems to go through 3-0, and I felt the most confident about them to make it through 3-0 at stage 1 of the major. I think when you look at their map pool as well, it's incredibly strong. They have some really cool protocols with LNZ. I've noticed as well in terms of like their leadership, they seem on point. It's not just the fact that T-Near is like popping off, and he has been great. Don't get me wrong.
Really
it's
good,
not like yeah, he's very, very impressive. And it's a team that I was also looking at the start of this year, and they've been consistently playing like top tier sort of 1.5 tournaments. They've been holding their own. They've been getting a lot of results. They're beating a lot of the teams as well that are like around their same level, like the Bates, the Bet Booms, the Namigas, these kind of squads, and pretty comprehensively, like 2-0s a lot of the time. So I look at this Heroic team, and for me, this might be a step too far because it's maybe early days, but I see them in the same bracket as maybe like an Aurora. Like we can talk about Aurora maybe later on as well, but like that kind of team that's going to make playoffs but maybe not make deep runs at playoffs, that's kind of how I see Heroic at this point, especially if they consistently are still churning out these results. Because I look at this squad. Sun Pius is getting on a little bit in his career. I think he had a really raw deal when it came to Falcons, especially, was massively scapegoated. But I'm thinking back to his Ents days. There was a time where Sun Pius was like touted as one of the most exciting.
It was only 2 years ago.
There.
Yeah, he was really good.
Yeah, not that long ago, right? And so now he's got a team of good IGL, good supporting cast players. Like you mentioned, you also have a player called Youngster, who I think is a really solid role player as well. And this is a team that is very exciting to me. But how many times have we said that about teams?
True.
And then something just falls apart? Maybe they get pillaged. I mean, I'm hearing that maybe G2 go for Sun Pius, right? Instead of Hades, maybe that just wrecks the entire team.
Yes.
So right now it's like, I'm very excited about Heroic, but are they going to live up to that potential? Are they going to realize what a lot of us are seeing right now, which is like, okay, this is legit?
I have to agree with the fact that they're an exciting roster. I mean, watching them play, they already beat Aurora in the opening game at Dallas, and then they lost to them in the rematch, and it was pretty close too. I mean, it went all 3 maps. I mean, they got 8 or more rounds on all the maps that they lost. I almost, it's kind of interesting. I feel like, I mean, I look at Heroic's run, and to me, the team that they resemble the most is Gamer Legion. They, in terms of just, they're kind of at a similar status where, yeah, they're neither of these are the S tier salary team. Like they're not a FaZe or a Vitality, obviously, but they're not in that like tier 3 space where you're just like, what's even going on here? The Sangol core is already proven to an extent that they had a lot of great online results before, and then they brought in a Tanir who was the best player on his own tier 2 roster in Gun 5, and then they have s1mple, who is a much more proven opper than, and more recently than actually anybody on Gamer Legion. I'm almost surprised that the ranking for them is lower by the amount that it is versus Gamer Legion. Like on HLTV right now, Heroic's 19th and Gamer Legion is 11th, because in terms of who they even both beat or played at the Dallas event, like Gamer Legion got to the playoffs by beating a G2 team, which I don't think anybody really rates right now, a 3D Max team, which has weirdly cratered after I was super excited about their tactics 3 months ago, and then Furia, who in their defense, they just got off a fucking 30-hour travel day, and then they had to play like 2 games immediately and just lost. Like they were just not great. And then I look at Heroic, who beat Aurora and FaZe, but they lost to Falcons, who Gamer Legion also lost to, and then they lost to Aurora in a rematch. Like, I think the run of Heroics was actually a bit harder in terms of who they had to beat to make it to the playoffs. They just didn't get there. And I think if in terms of talent, I would relate even Tanir a lot to PR. They both kind of play these extremity sort of spots, and their aim is very similar too. That's something I also kind of noticed, where they have this very like lock. They like it's very crisp. The tracking is very good. I think PR has to move his mouse a little bit more, but he's so smooth it doesn't matter. Tanir almost has perfect crosshair placement all the time, and then he has such low sensitivity that he just has these really, really clean micro connections. For the other people though on Gamer Legion, for some reason I've always thought they were a little bit less reliable, including Tossin, A-Core / Slend. I thought they were like really up and down, but I don't know why they're so low ranked. And I think behind them, that Nilo situation is a little bit awkward. Like, I think that's one thing that maybe was kind of jamming them up at the beginning of the season. Like,
if they could add him, they'd be a much better team too. That was like, that player looked like he had real potential.
Nilo would probably be up there with Tanir and X-Flat.
Yeah,
that would be a really strong rifle trio, I think. And Youngster's not a bad player. No. It's just that Nilo is a better player. Yeah, sure, people could get on me for roles here in this, but like, nah, I think Nilo is better for sure, regardless of that. And yeah, I think if they were found a way to slot Nilo in, then this could be extremely scary. I'm only worried about these kind of teams just because I just imagine Tanir is going to get poached. I don't know if Belarus is difficult to work around for.
It's the same as Russia, as far as I know.
Yeah, so it would be a little bit awkward for certain organizations to try to pick up Tanir. But man, if a team like, I've been looking for replacements or upgrades for G2 for a while now, and I feel like PR for Gamer Legion was one I said earlier, but Tanir is another one. I mean, I don't even see why a team in the top 10 shouldn't be looking at these guys, but,
I mean, by the way, you can also, like I say, I don't know what his personal feelings are, but if he's himself willing to play a Russian team, maybe he can be on like a VP or one of those sorts of squads too. He can also go the other way. It doesn't have to be an international team. Finally, one thing I didn't mention was, just like Vince said, the one downside of this team is the rumour is s1mple and Saw both going to G2, innit? That's the other thing as well. By the way, that Saw guy... You have to just tip your hat. Every roster works. Yeah. Every single roster just works. Like, you can give him any players. And so like, this is another guy up there with Ash, where it's like, put it this way, if he really does get the G2 offer, congrats, you deserve it, mate. You're the sort of person should be in a giant org like that has all the money and, can build a team that can win the majors. Like, you've proven it at all levels at this point in time. It's very impressive. Especially if you remember, Maui, this guy was just like the no-name IGL of that fucking Havu team 1 billion years ago at that Flashpoint. At the time, it was like a bomber. They were even third. It's like, fuck, if this team's third, does this league just totally suck? Spoiler, it did, but it's all good. But it turned out, actually, that guy was like, he had something to it. If you don't know, even back then, Havu actually had like real strats, mate. I mean, he was like one of those super low-fag hounding types, but you could see there was something there, but I didn't expect it to like, he'd be one of the like fucking like coaches that would change the face of the landscape. And so, yeah, he's killed it. I think he's done a great job. And by the way,
you never really know. You really never know, like, which tier 2 coach is actually going to end up being, or like tier 2 IGL that turns coach is going to actually just be such a massive difference maker. But with the success of the ENCE roster and the Heroic roster, I mean, if you even want to just look at accolades, I mean, Saw is, I'd say Saw is more accomplished than Ash. You know,
he's won a tier 1 tournament. Yeah, he's won the Cologne final. He's had semis at Major. He's done a lot, mate. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they're both great. They're both great. They're both honestly great coaches for getting more out of what they have.
And notice every single one of those results, he built those rosters up. He didn't get a roster that was awesome. He always gets a roster, and we're like, who? And then they become someone, and he sells them on because of him. As far as I can tell, what are you going to say, Vince?
I think at this point, and maybe this is going too far, but I kind of view Saw as like a top 3 coach. I think when you look at the talent that he's had, the sides that he's basically built up from the ground floor, the sort of turbulence with the trio of Heroic going across the Falcons and him building it back up from scratch. And I think it's a really good comparison that Maui made between Heroic and Gamer Legion in multiple facets, not just the team, but the coach, like you said, the fact that they're always going to be a team that's going to get poached for talent, and then they're going to be relatively cheap compared to the alternatives that are at the tier 1 bracket already. And that for me is the biggest concern. It's like, if they lose Saw, if they lose Unpious, then I think this Heroic team has been gutted. And whereas before they could bounce back because of Saw's coaching, who's the replacement going to be? Are they at that same level where they can bring in that next player that's going to be able to shine, or maybe next 2 players if Tania also gets poached, which I think is a very distinct possibility as well. That's my concern with this Heroic squad. But right now, as your good point stands, Thorin, I'm 100% agreement with you, man. Like, Heroic look like a really solid team that has like kind of exploded into this scene in the last sort of 5 or 6 months. And now going into the major, I wouldn't be surprised if not just they make stage 1 easily into stage 2. I think they're an upset team, especially when you consider there's best of ones on the table. And like, they can really ruin some people's dreams at this major. Yes.
By the way, even though I did a whole video on my own channel, you can go check this out if you want. Even though I do think it was absolute nonsense when the youngster guy made that comment about Falcons, like, we're going to prove that hard work beats money. Even though I do think all the interpretations of people like, well, you see what he was like a fucking C-SPAN guy, like what he was doing was making a post-colonial critical critique of capitalism he wasn't doing any of that, you fucking idiots. But I do think what he actually meant, though, Vince, is referring to what you're saying. I think what he means by that hard work is that they have to grind all the CCTs and play all those online cops. So essentially, the one area that can actually, as a hard work beats type thing, work is if you come to the major, and we've seen this in the past with the Montes of the world and some of these squads where, you know, they play like 150 maps in like a 3-month period or something. If you have that sort of grind, there can be a world where you can sometimes be slightly ahead of the meta at a major. We've seen that with the Gamer Legions of the world, etc. So I actually also do think that's not a minor issue. Like, if you actually have a roster that on LAN can do it, this seems like it can, but then you've also done the online grind, the baits of the world are trying to show this, sometimes that can give you like a tiny step up in a way you wouldn't expect, actually. I've seen that happen before. Right, let's go on. So, Maui, do you have something to say? It's not really a great segue, but go for it.
Oh, yeah, my bad. Yeah. No,
good.
Okay.
It's all good.
Yeah, no, okay. So, obviously, we, as men, you know, we usually just, the things we have, we don't replace them often enough, okay? That's just that's a general statement. We'll use something until it's absolutely just completely busted, and...
But enough about Anders.
But, exactly. But the thing that I've recently upgraded was my wallet, because I don't know, I'm going in and out of public transit often, and one thing that the Ridge wallet here has done for me is made things just so easy, okay? Like, it's so slick, it's so quick. I can basically take out my cards in and out of my pocket without even looking, okay? And I feel like this is something where if you're taking the metro often, or if you're just quick to pay, if you're walking into a convenience store and you just want to get out your credit card super fast, you could just slide it out of this.
You don't even need to take it all the way out, right? You just do 3/4 and just tap it on the thing, right? That's what
you just like, you kind of just like slick it out a little bit, then just tap it on, and you can just slide it back in like it's nothing. That kind of stuff is been so much more convenient than just kind of flipping through an old wallet. Okay, so we here at Snake and Banter are sponsored by Ridge, and if you want to get your own products from Ridge, and they have many. Like, yes, they have wallets, but they actually have
It's called a key case. I have one that you put keys in.
Yes.
What was 6 keys?
Yes, the key case. Yes, the key case. You're right. Yes, that one. That too is also just like they've just simplified and streamlined certain aspects of our lives.
Yes.
And if you want to get in on this, you go to ridge.com/snake. So you can take advantage of Ridge's once a year memorial sale and get up to 40% off. So be sure to check out our link, and you can streamline your life. I mean, I don't know what a better sell is than this. And also they have some pretty sick cases. I mean, like, I have like a case hardened one right here, and honestly, it just feels dope. I mean,
yours is made out of like metal or something, I'm guessing, right? I know they have
it's metal. This is actually made of metal. This is actually made of metal.
Whereas I think mine was like carbon fiber or something. Like, they have all sorts of different like materials, yeah.
Yeah, and they look cool. They're slick. It just makes things so much easier. So yeah, make Ridge part of your life. Go to ridge.com/snake.
Yes, thank you to everyone who purchases that. Obviously, let them know we sent you if they ask in the thing at the end of the checkout, etc., and you get the savings. Right, let's go on. Now we will talk about the bad things in CS. So, Vince, what is bad in CS?
Oh, Virtus.pro, dude. Like, what is going on with this team? Like, you go back to the James days, he gets removed, everyone's excited. Oh, Electronic's going to come in, he's going to IGL, and it's going to revitalize the team. And they've picked Flamus up from Gamer Legion, and this is that they got Flit and Fame, they got all this talent, all this ability. It's as flat as a fart in the wind. Like, nothing's happened. They have a 40% win rate over the last 3 months. You'd have to go back to Lisbon before they had a notable win. They've lost to MIBR, Rare Atom, like teams that are so far below them. And every time I watch VP, I'm just so underwhelmed. I'm so disappointed. Like, was he kidding everybody with this kind of idea that he could be an IGL? Has he ever proven himself as an IGL in the past for any consistent basis or length of time? Like, he's not VP savior, man. Like, I don't know where VP go from here. Sure, they're going to be at the major, but does anyone have any faith in them at this point? I certainly don't.
Yeah, no, VP are just, they're such a mess. I mean, the way I keep describing their style is that it's just the T side is just way too intricate. Okay, I've used the phrase that they're building a house of cards with the window open. They're just trying to do too much in a round, and when they try to simplify things, it's almost too simple. They need to reach a happy medium of going for a strategy that, yes, you take map control, but then you just work with that map control and just hit. Like, I think a prime example of a team that doesn't overcomplicate things is actually Aurora. Like, I mean, yeah, they fall on the bigger stages, but at least they reach the big stages. That's something that they have going for them. And I wouldn't even argue that their personnel is that much better. Like, it's definitely, it is better today, but that almost just might be because the system helps them out so much. Whereas everybody on VP is kind of walking on thin ice around Electronic. And I'm sure Thorin maybe feels a little bit differently than me about this, but I don't think that it's any environment for an up-and-coming player or players in Icy and Flamus to be completely chastised when you just mess up little details in a strategy. Okay, like Electronic in an interview said that these guys need to build confidence. How the hell do you build confidence if a guy is just screaming at you every time you mess up the smallest details? Okay, because people have translated the times when his comms go out from Russian to English, and it's not pretty. Like, it's not something that I'm like, oh yes, this is positive reinforcement. It's barely negative reinforcement. It's actually just flat out scolding in a way that I wouldn't find myself learning in. And yeah, everybody's different. Eastern Europe is different culture, okay? Like, I know we're softer here in America. Like, we probably want to be treated a little bit nicer. But at the same time, it's not working. So, like, if the results actually were materializing, if they were actually getting more wins because of this kind of method, then I could say it's working. But I can be results oriented and have my way of thinking, and both of them show me that this is not accurate. This is not going to work for them. I think Electronic as an IGL has been a tremendous failure in every single tournament or every single team that he's played in. Because let's remember, with Navi, he did win the one trophy, but it was immediately after Boomage left, the first tournament. And what that practically meant was they got a firepower upgrade because Electronic still was a good fragger at that point. SDY was a better fragger than Boomage. And then they just were running the Boomage system. Never again. Nothing else came of that. Then he goes to Cloud9, and team is just never any better. I had hoped that he had learned from those experiences. I think I even dubbed them a super team, which by personnel, or I forgot which team. Yeah. They were incredibly strong in terms of the personnel. They had like Axile, they had Shiro, they had him. Perfecto. Like that was
a pretty cracked out squad, mate.
Practically everybody on that roster had been number one on HLTV they've been on an HLTV ranked number one team in the last 6 months. It was absurdly strong. All of them were tournament winners. You know, three of them were major winners. So the credentials were there. You know, the hardware was there behind these guys, and he made them look worse. He made them look worse than the sum of their parts. And then now he takes it to VP again, and I just feel like what Electronic wants is he's remembering those glory days of a very structured, intricate Blade system, but he doesn't know how to deliver the message as well as Blade does. He can't express how he wants the round to run, and he doesn't know how to simplify things so that it's easy to follow. Blade has obviously caught multiple players up to speed who may not have been in similarly intricate systems, but sometimes it's about the delivery. Sometimes it's about the way that you express all of the details to everybody. And I just think that Electronic there's some disconnect between what he wants, how he's saying it, and then what's being carried out in the server. And it just creates a greater mess every single time.
One thing I want to touch on is the last thing that Vince was addressing, which is, or was it Maui who said this? Whichever one of you was talking about the fact that like he gets mad at the players. Was that you who said that, Vince?
It's Maui, yeah.
Oh, okay, Maui. Right, basically, that's one thing that I think is always misremembered when people like NPL and SDY were in Na'Vi. Everyone remembers, for obvious reasons, s1mple flaming the fuck out of them. No. If you ever saw on voice comms, the problem is Electronic didn't do interviews back then. It was both s1mple and Electronic flaming the fuck out of the person who was fucking up in the game. So I always thought, like, it's why actually you know that Blade is a genius coach, because the fact he was able to get bit through that fire and get him to be a good player while those guys were there shows me like he was balancing it out, because I thought when NPL and SDY were there, the combo of s1mple and Electronic flaming you is like, I think that's a bit too much. It's one thing to have like one player, you know, you can do a good cop, bad cop. You can have the one guy who pushes you like Michael Jordan, then the Scottie Pippen guy who puts his arm around it. They didn't have any arms around people in this scenario. It was just, there was just two rabid dogs just screaming in your face from either side. So one of the problems I always had was, right, I'll give you a great example of what I love and hate about pro players, which is pro players, when they think a scenario has changed, will tell you what they actually think and forget that in the future they might have to go back and reverse that scenario. So you ready for a banger? If you look up old interviews with Electronic, well, at the end of 2023, when he actually was with Cloud9 and he was early on, I think this is when he just stopped being IGL and they got Boomich. Well, the second they got Boomich, he didn't have to pretend he wanted to be the IGL anymore. So here's two headlines for you that he said. In a HLTV interview, he goes, I understood that I'm better as a star player than an IGL. Very telling, isn't it? Because remember, this guy, up until 2021, at the end was when he finished being a star player. Well, every year this guy was a star player in Na'Vi, he was a HLTV top 5 or 6 player in the world. That's how good this guy was. If you remember, on T-side, this was a guy who was like, would just, like, a thing of exertion now, that was this guy. He would just run in on T-side and do the most insane, like, drive-by 2K on people to open the site, and then it's game on and s1mple wins you the game and you're unbeatable, and you think, wow, there's firepower. The second he became IGL, he's massively handicapped his game. But what's sad is, I think he's got simultaneously the same problem of snacks and twists, which goes like this. So another interview he did the same year, at the end of 2023, he even said, get ready, I'm probably not that good with IGLing. The problem is I'm super emotional. I actually also think, to agree with you, Matt, he doesn't have the temperament to be an IGL. If you're going to be harsh like that, here's my problem. It's like what I always told s1mple. If you're going to be harsh, you better always be right. Because that's the one defense I've got for you, is that you actually are correct. It can't ever be that basically you call something a bit scoffed that isn't the right call. Yes, a player fucks up some of the execution of what you call, but it maybe wasn't the right call anyway. And then it's almost like you just pick him because he did the minor mistake to take out the frustration that you didn't call a good round and that we're losing the game. You do that and it will do what happens now. You'll get a team of players that on paper look good, but they're less than the sum of their parts. You watch them in the game and you're like, this player's worse than I remember. Like, What's going on? So I think that is quite telling. I agree with you, Vince. I don't think he ever actually was a good IGL. I think at best he was okay. And even then, by the way, most of the results when he was okay, he still had, by the way, that was the year s1mple still was like fucking number one in the world. Like that year, 2022, he's still the number one You had the number one player in the world. He was the GOAT. So I can't even judge, like, were you doing much there? The second you left him, I'll just put it this way, Maui. When they made that super team, it wasn't just you. A lot of us did. We had a squad with 5 HL TV top 20 players. Bro, this team could win the major. They not only didn't even have a sniff, I'm not even joking. Later, when they got Boomich and they sold their AWPer Shiro, and actually fucking Boomich and Electronic and Hobbit would like take turns AWPing, I think that team was better because Boomich was IGLing. I actually think making Electronic the Rifler made that squad actually a more viable team. And so the saddest thing to me was why he ever went back this approach. Because to me, you did your time, it didn't work. You got to do like the shocks and go, right, okay, I accept it. I'm just not an IGL. I'll go back to being a player. Because this is why I say he's got a mixture of snacks and twists. The snacks part, and this is going to be relevant to VP, is he was a legendary player who was really good individually. So it means people don't want to flame you. I don't think even people like Snacks and Taz get this. People by default pull for you, dude, because you were so good. You were so special at what you did. But because you're doing a different job, you'll see eventually even your ardent supporters, if you do a bad job, will sort of be like, maybe it's not for him though. Maybe he didn't make the right. And so you've had the Snacks thing, but even worse, you've also got the Twists thing, which is, you know why I don't blame Snacks himself? I blame the team that hires Snacks because your Snacks, this is the only way to extend your career. You've got to be an IGL, mate. You're not going to be a great player anymore. That was 8 years ago. Electronic.pro, this was only a couple of years ago. I even think from what I saw at the end of Cloud9, you could even still be a really good rifler. So what I hate is, one, you don't even have to be kicked from VP. So if VP's shit is like, we're going to treat him like he's a Snacks, like, CS royalty. We can't kick Fall and we can't kick Snap. If you're going to do that, then just keep him as a rifle and bring in a real IGL. Get a real IGL and have this guy go back to just shooting heads because I believe he could do it. But as an IGL, I'm with you. He is not the saviour of VP. In fact, I would argue right now, he's not there. I actually think he might even be their worst player. I do think he is the biggest factor, though, why they can't progress as a team, in my opinion. Because also, on those two players you're referencing, like the Flammus guy, I actually think has immense potential. I think if you give this guy, by the way, to a really good IGL, he would tear the scene up. I even thought in Game Legion he was showing real promise. Like he looked really good. The problem with the Icy guy is that guy looks actually scared to fucking move inside of a server, Maui. He looks on T side like he doesn't move. He looks like he's waiting for the guy to tell him how high to jump. You know what I mean? Like he doesn't get a fucking. He's like they use him like a bot. He doesn't even do like the usual like AWPer, like move around. This guy's the most limited AWPer you'll see. So I do think sadly they've taken a squad of players, and I think this IGL is just a mismatch. So either he needs to get a different team, or if I were him, I would just give up on this part because like I say, I don't think he actually needs us to continue his career. Maybe in VP they don't want to tell him because to be fair they gave Jim a lot of rope. Maybe they don't want to tell him, hey mate, it's not working out. But can't you just go back to being a really good player? Do we have to do this IGL thing? You know what I mean?
I think you touched on a really good point there as well towards the end where you were talking about Icy in particular. And Icy's always been a fairly passive AWPer. Like I remember watching him back at the, I think it was the Copenhagen RMRs when he's playing with Amcal. He was very passive. He had great aim. He was able to get a lot of impact over on like Ramp on Nuke, for example. He was really solid there. Then Cloud9 was kind of the same thing. But this is the issue. If you feel like you're walking on eggshells all the time and there's no balance in terms of feedback, it's just anger, it's just basically you fucked up, why are you so bad, etc., etc. Players like that are going to go more into their shell. They're going to be scared to take fights. They're going to be scared to fully extend themselves because they're scared of the repercussions of if they die first. And you're seeing the same things happen with Flit. You're seeing the same things happen with Fame. These are players that should be world beaters. These are players that should be up there as some of the best riflers on the planet, and they cannot because it just feels like they're scared. They're just in a really shitty environment where they can't fully express themselves. And this is also a reason why, when we were talking about Heroic before, God, I hope TNA doesn't go to this team. Please no. Don't let another rifler just disappear into the vacuum that is VP at this point.
No, I'm with you. Right, okay, Maui, what is your bad point?
I had one. I forgot. I don't know if you were gonna do this other one though, Thorin, which I think is more pressing, which is I had the one about Gamer Legion, but I also am thinking that this Bestia one.
Do that if you want.
Did you? Okay. All right. So actually, yeah, I wanted to talk about the fact that this whole Bestia saga with Blast is really kind of almost getting hard to read in terms of the mounting evidence that at first was. it felt like at the beginning all of the community was on the side of Bestia, but the support for Bestia has slowly withered as more details have come out that show that their inability to secure visas by the date that Blast outlined. I mean, it was past it. They posted the visas themselves that they got them on the 23rd of May when there was a deadline set by Blast to be the 21st of May. And, you know, the obvious disclaimer again is I am frequently hired by Blast. By the time that this podcast comes out, I assume that I'm announced for the Austin Major too, so I'm working this event. But the whole deal with Bestia, it's a bad point just because the way that they tried to rally the community to take their side felt disingenuous, or that they were leading the community down the wrong stretch, where they were saying that it felt like at first they knew they were going to get the visas by Monday, which would be, by the way, May 26th, which is well past the deadline.
I think the deadline was 21st, was it? I think, was it the 21st?
Yes, the deadline was the 21st. The deadline from Blast, which, okay, so it says this is the text from Blast themselves. On Friday, May 16th, we issued a clear and final deadline to all teams with outstanding visa issues of May 21st. Yes, that's a very short deadline, but it felt like, but from what I could gather, this deadline seemed to only affect Bestia, Halzerk, and Regali. Regali have since gotten his visa. I don't know how Halzerk doesn't have a visa when he's playing.
That's why, if you notice, Messi also chimed in on this topic, because obviously he was in a similar spot, right? So he made a comment about us, so if people want to see it on Twitter.
Yeah. So he, so the only people that are currently affected by outstanding visa issues are Bestia and Halzerk. And I mean, I'm going to say also, just like side tangent here, in the whole debacle of teams not and this space thinking that we shouldn't have American events, we're getting a lot of Russian players into America that don't seem to have any problems. Like, because I know that always comes up. It's like, stop holding events in America, and it's like, okay, everybody was able to do it except for one odd case with Halzerk and then Bestia. Okay, and I know that any amount would compromise an event, in all honesty, but this has even happened before with Dexter not being able to go to Copenhagen. So it still happens in Europe also. Like, the one-off player that can't go to an event. So either way, I mean, the big point here being that it feels like, and obviously I don't know what all of the tech says that's exchange between all of these people, but in terms of how it's reading from the outside, and at least judging community perception at this point and my own perception, it feels like Bestia wrongly said that they were getting their visas at a certain time. The entire community goes on their behalf, and as other competitors do, when like Apex and Monacy are saying, yo, just, they got it or whatever, but then they didn't have it, but then they actually got it at a different time, and they also already exceeded the deadline and everything like that. I find this to be really disingenuous, the way that Bestia went through the motions here. But I mean, I'm open to hearing other opinions, because obviously, I'm going to take the side of Blast in a lot of these. But if there's other things that you guys read that would make you take the side of Bestia in this, I'm open to hear it.
Go on, Vince.
I mean, as far as I'm aware, like, everyone had the same deadlines, right? And yet all these teams correctly had their visas in place at the right time. Sure, Regali and Halzerk are like freak occurrences, but every other team has got it sorted out. So it's like, why is there a different rule for Bestia? Why a Blast supposed to bend over backwards to accommodate them? And I also don't really appreciate that a lot of the pro players coming out and being like, come on, Blast, PGL gave an extra 4 or 5 days. What is this line of equivalence? Like, visa laws are different depending on which country we're talking about. US is notoriously difficult for getting visas for people from Europe, all over the world for that matter. And so how do we know that Blast don't have some stipulations or have some extra pressure on them from their contacts at the US government, or whoever they're talking with for that matter, that needs for them to push forward and get this sorted as fast as possible? It's crazy to me that because PGL were able to, and that's great for PGL, but they're also hosting a tournament, a major in a completely different country, in a completely different continent, under completely different circumstances. Why do Blast have to follow suit? I don't understand this as a line of equivalence. And if Bestia are the only team that haven't successfully got their visas set up in time, maybe it's you guys. maybe you messed up, maybe you weren't fast enough, you didn't do your due diligence, and now unfortunately, and it is terrible for the players because like they did legitimately qualify for the major. It really does suck for them. Like this is a great opportunity for those guys, but if the org is messed up, I don't see how that's Blast's fault at all. Like I just don't get it. I don't even understand like where to begin with this.
I'm actually mainly on the Maui side / the Blast side on this one, and also people like Messi also, etc. But I have a tiny area I'll shade in later where actually I can sort of also... I don't think it's quite as black and white. I think a little bit more nuanced. But first, I actually want to ask a quick question. Maui, this isn't something I've prepared. I didn't even know you were going to make this topic, obviously, until literally 1 second ago. This wasn't a topic Maui sent me, so I have no information on this topic. What I want to know is this. I don't actually know technically what the claim from Bestia is about how the process went. So, for example, I don't know. That's one of the things that Vince just said there. That is the first question as a journalist I would ask Bestia, which is, can you give me a full chronological timeline of everything you did and explain to me how this isn't your fault? Because to me, if you can't, then this is completely moot. Like if it turns out, for example, you applied late, then it's all your fault and you're the reason why your players didn't get the visa. If it turns out you fucked up a form, if you don't know, by the way, I'll give you a random detail. This is completely a tangent. It's not actually about visas, but in the UK, for example, Vince will know this. We have a very famous, bizarre, strict rule that when you fill out the form to get your passport, at the end, when you sign your signature, it says in text, do not go outside the box. And I'm not even joking. If the pen even touches the line of the box, you will have the form declined. That is just, it doesn't matter if everything else is correct. If you've had 1 million passports, they will, if the pen goes outside the line, you won't get it. So I don't know if it's something like that. Like, you know, you sent in a document, but you missed a photo. You didn't leave one extra piece of it. If anything of it is your fault, my problem is my sympathy dries up immediately because you haven't copped to that. At the end, what you've done, as we're saying, is you've basically done sort of a sob story with a bleeding heart component where you've pulled on the heartstrings of other pro players. Like, come on, man. Hey, come on. Give him a go. Like, but I'd have to know that it wasn't your fault. If it turns out it wasn't, by the way, if it turns out there's some bizarre thing, and by the way, this is why, unfortunately, I suspect this isn't the case. If in any context it turned out blasted fucked up, you'd be entirely justified with all this. As far as I can tell, this is why I'm suspicious, and I was asking you guys if you know more about it than me do. I haven't really noticed that. It feels to me like they've gone through the process, it just hasn't worked out for them. Maybe they didn't have enough time. And then because it hasn't worked out, as opposed to going, well, that sucks, kind of a tragedy for everyone, they've just decided we're just going to flip the entire onus on Blast. Like, you should just accommodate us anyway, just because. And then people are using all this logic of like, yeah, but you know, they earned that spot. No, sorry. I mean, at the end of the day, that logic would still apply if you didn't have visas by that logic. So shouldn't we now move the major to another country since you you earned the spot if you can jump through all the hoops? That also goes without saying. That part's almost in square brackets of you earned this spot. If you can get the visas and qualify and attend the event and be there on site, like that's just how it works. So I'm already a little bit suspicious by that part. Like essentially, I don't think they've done a very good job giving me a compelling reason it's not their fault and they should be let in. So instead, as you guys have alluded to, it becomes arguments about things like how long should the deadline be before the first game? What country should the major be in? Which to me is like, we're getting a bit off the beaten path here. Surely this is about specifically Bestia and how they got their visas to this major that we've known about for ages. So what I will say is this. One thing that was pointed out is immediately a massive red flag for me is, as an outsider just reading people's reports, it appears that you've lied already. As soon as you lie again, a lot of my sympathy's gone because now how can I trust a lot of the other things you've said? So my problem is I need to believe you're earnest. But if I find out, as you said, Maui, that you've maybe told people, no, we definitely have all the visas now, but it's sort of like, well, at least by the time you check this message tomorrow, I'll have one more. Like that, I can't take that. Like, as soon as you're fucking around like that, spoiler, that even makes me think you could have lied to your own players. That means your own could have fucked it up. You know what I mean?
No, he did lie. He 100% lied. Because
like they said they had all five at some point, right?
Yes, he said they had all five in a tweet, and then it shows date of issue on May 22nd. He said that at what is for me 11 a.m. and Argentinian time probably like 2 p.m. or 3 p.m. whatever. It's still May 22nd. He said that they had the visas, and then when you look at what they posted, the visas they were issued the next day. They were issued the next day, so they didn't actually have the physical visas when they said they were, and also they said we were going to get the visa. And this is a weird point. So the first point is what in fact, I'm not even going to say the second point because it would just undermine the first a little bit. But like, No, yeah. No, he said they had them when they literally didn't, and on the visa itself it says date of issue the next day.
Well, I'm sorry. In a scenario where you're totally innocent and you've been fucked over, the one thing you don't do is lie. Like that doesn't even make that's such a tactical misplay. And I'm sorry, since I don't know you, I'll even just say my immediate consideration here is if you've lied about that, how do I know you didn't lie about when you started applying? How do I know you didn't lie to a player that it was all going for? How do I know any of this? Because I've only just experienced you now, Bestie. I don't really know anything about you. And already it seems like you're emotionally manipulating people, being disingenuous how you're framing things, trying to actually ask for dispensations when nothing's been done to you, and then potentially lying on top of that. Well, you know what? At that point in time, I think you've contributed at least to the fuck up. If not, it's your fault. And then lastly, I would just say this part, which is, I have two parts to say very briefly, which go like this. The problem with this is, I heard Yanko make this point, and I thought he did have something to his point, which is, technically, the date is arbitrary. It's picked as a date so that everyone has to aim for that, so that Blast knows in advance that everyone's got the visa and they can prepare things. Like, by the way, here are things people won't have thought of if they're fans. Like, for example, if you replace a team, what happens with the stickers? If you make a team come 3 days before the event, but I don't know that they're definitely coming, how do I make content for the event? How do I make intros and fucking historical? You know, it's not as simple as, this is what I wanted to get to. My problem with this is, I notice almost no one saying that the deadline was too early or that the process is broken has offered an alternative. And I think that is incredibly bad faith. They haven't explained how many days should the deadline be before the first match. Because I get the feeling that at the moment we're actually acting like there shouldn't be a deadline. And basically, the joke is, if they can turn up in their seats at the time of the first game, then they're in the major. We can't run a major that way. Like there has to be a deadline eventually. I hope we all agree with that. Like, listen, you might be really generous. Maybe you think the deadline should only be 4 days before. Whatever you think, though. If we get to the 4 days and then the guy goes, yeah, but tomorrow my visa's coming and I promise it's the same thing again, isn't it? So I think that part's a part I find a little bit disingenuous too, that we're not saying like what the actual real deadline should be. We're basically saying there shouldn't be one. I'm sorry, Blast can't run their major that way. Valve can't run their major that way. We can't do the stickers that way. That's a really unreasonable consideration. And then also, by the way, how could you be the replacement team? How can I be the replacement team 1 day before the event? Like, I have to have time to travel there. I have to book my hotel. I have to get my visa. I mean, you should already have it, but I have to get my stickers in the game. By the way, I have to prep for the match. What if I'm actually playing this fucking major? Am I just going to prep and then it turns out you come anyway and it was all for nothing? Or am I actually playing it? So I do, but the last thing I'll say is this. The one modifier I will throw in, because like I'm saying, I do think it's plausible you might be able to have a little bit more wiggle room with the deadline. I just want other people to be fair and give me the offer. Essentially, here's the point. Instead of saying the deadline sucks, give me a counter offer. When should the deadline be? If you make a good case for it, maybe I'll agree with you. But the last thing I'll say that I do think maybe tiny bit plays to Bestia's favour is this food for thought. If this exact arbitrary deadline had been set and it had have been Vitality or Team Spirit that didn't get it, would they also have given the replacement to Legacy? Listen, I can't actually know. That's a pure speculation. But I will say, I suspect if it was Vitality or essentially Donk's team, you would have found a way to still get him in. That's just a pure cynical speculation from me. But I do, and if that's true, by the way, then again, I have a little bit of sympathy for Bestia, because I do think, by the way, there should never be favoritism like that. Like, I don't think, look, I want to see Donk play too, but if you would have disqualified Bestia, you'd have to disqualify Donk's team. I just don't believe you would, because I have to say what history has taught me is that you do play to the big favourites and the people you have to have at your event and the ones that you need to see. Like, unfortunately, you do make special rules for special players. So I'll just say that. But if you notice, that's not a particularly good argument for Bestia, because, spoiler, you aren't Vitality or Donk. So that doesn't really help you. It's just more like, isn't the world hypocritical? Yes, it is, sadly. That's life. Yeah. That is life, I'm afraid.
Yeah, in a light way of bringing some facts to the table here about that, they wouldn't have to play if it's Vitality or Spirit for like 2 more weeks.
Sure, but you know what I mean? If they had been in the same stage, you know what I mean? Don't you think they'd find any possible way to get Zimu and Duncan in the tournament? You know, we wouldn't, wouldn't we? Come on.
I do understand what your point is there. Yeah.
By the way, I do agree. One last thing to say, because here's why I actually agree you picked it as a bad point, not an ugly one, Maui, is because this has become an emotional sob story of like, don't you feel sorry for them because they earned their spot? I thought the best example was when Kassad and Professor were going back and forth with each other, because I agree with Kassad. Professor's whole point was like essentially Kassad's implying he's heard something behind the scenes that actually maybe not even true from the Blast side. Maybe they've exaggerated or been disingenuous how they communicated something. But Professor's whole take was like, no, but they said it though. Look, they said it. Well, it's like, mate, were you bored? Did you come out of a dick 4 seconds ago? You can lie. You can lie, you idiots. Like, guess what? And this is going to blow your mind, Professor. Even Orcs lie in esports. What are you talking about? Again, were you born 5 minutes ago? Like, I actually need, by the way, I need evidence from both sides. I need both sides to show me, like, paperwork of dates, email. This is why, by the way, unfortunately, solving this in the public forum is a very inappropriate place. Like, this should be more something where, like, my ideal scenario would be, like, Richard Lewis goes and researches all this, gets all the documents, talks to all the people, and then whatever he tells me at the end is probably true. That's what I would say to resolve this situation. And again, unfortunately, I'm not particularly qualified to talk about this one. I haven't gone through all the stuff. Like, I didn't know this topic was going to come up. I just know vaguely what's going on. And then, spoiler, last point, and this does suck for you, Bestia. I'm a massive elitist, and you aren't Vitality and Dog, and I don't really give a fuck if you play the major or not. I know that sucks, doesn't it? Oh, well, oh, no.
After all of that.
Can you believe he said it out loud? Yeah, I'll say it a fucking million more. By the way, if it was up to me, now, whatever, we won't say that. It's all good. It's all good. Yeah, listen, whatever I probably would have said there would have been even better. That wouldn't. It was just some nonsense. Go on, Vince.
The thing is as well, though, like, I agree with you. If it was Vitality, it would be a different situation, perhaps. Like, we don't know for sure.
No, we can't
perhaps,
know. It's speculation.
But also, Bestia know that they are an underdog team. One of the sub-stories that they've brought out is like, this means so much to us. Then why didn't you get it sorted out quicker?
Yeah, true.
Like, all these other teams, they're traveling from Melbourne back to Copenhagen to Dallas. Like, they're all over the world. Bestia have done one event in the last, like, 4 or 5 months. It was in Argentina. They haven't even been traveling. What have they been doing this entire time? Like,
I will say
not to have this sorted out.
That is a detail maybe a casual wouldn't know. It's a good point, actually, Vince, which is this. The reason why I actually also don't have that much sympathy is that, as you say, all the Russian players got it. Because if you don't know, the Russian one's even worse. Like, the reason why you've had people like the Dexters of the world have to skip events is because you have to literally send in your passport to get that visa over there. So that means, like, if you're traveling to events, they've had to literally, like you're saying, months in advance, juggle. Like, if you come home from the event, you have to that day go to the embassy, give the passport. There has to be enough time for you to get on the plane, get it back, go on the plane to the next event to use the so if they've managed to spin all those plates, and as you say, this team had one event in months, that feels like some of it's you. You know, again, we can't know, but it feels like some of it's you. You know.
Hey, yes. Hearing about again, like with the relating it to the people that Travel's experience. I hope he doesn't mind that I share this, but like, well, yeah. By the time this is out, the announcement should be out, so I think it's fine. Okay, I think. Like, well, I'll just say one talent member who was traveling to a lot of events. One talent, he had to give his passport to his embassy. They had to take it, hold it. He had another event, and he basically needed to just pray that he got the passport back in time so he could fly to the next event and still attend it. And it's a guy that's not always getting every single gig, but he's getting, a couple of them in a row. And that was incredibly stressful for him, but he found time to do it too. And I mean, hearing from him what he had to go through and the stress that it involved, like, yeah, you're gonna have to take some concessions on your own comfort in these. You're definitely gonna have to like those 3 days that he had at home between events were just like giga stressful, and but he still gets it done in that.
By the way, isn't that also pointing to another point we didn't really make, which is, I'm sorry, this will sound like elitism because it is. Another reason why I can be elitist about the fact I don't know you, Bestia, is because I don't know much about your org as a result. I don't know who works there. I don't know what they do. Here's the difference. If this was G2 or Team Liquid or Na'Vi, I think it would be more likely they didn't make the mistake and it was a mistake on someone else's end. They're very experienced orgs getting these visas and, as you say, juggling these plates. The problem I have in this case is I don't know the background of Bestia, so I can't know that they actually did follow all the protocols and this is someone else's fault. In fact, this is one of the first times I've ever heard of them in this sort of position, so it's also why it's such a tricky scenario. I feel like if this was a really big name brand team, it would be a lot easier to believe that they didn't fuck up the application process, Also, lastly, again, I don't know much about relations between South American and US, but is it really harder for an Argentinian to get a US visa than a fucking Russian? America's essentially fighting a proxy war against Russia right now. Is it really hard? I could be wrong on that one. Again, I don't want to speak out of turn, but I feel like surely yours is a bit easier than the Russian one, especially because as far as I know, one of the problems that a lot of the Eastern Europeans have is they almost have a fucking lottery element where it's sometimes you just randomly don't get it, but there's not really any reason. I've never even heard of that for the South Americans. So again, the whole thing's just bizarre to me. And sadly, it did just become a fucking Hallmark movie of don't you feel sorry? Look at this crying Argentinian child who just wanted to see Bestia play. Don't you want him to smile again? It's this is nothing to do with fucking deadlines and visas anymore, is it? You've drawn us into some saccharine shit at this point in time. Also, if you don't know, I don't like my feelings being manipulated. Steven Spielberg. I want to feel how I want to feel about the character. What's sad is now people are just going to pick the obvious movie I wasn't talking about and think I'm on the other side of that one, you piece of shit. Listen, Ray Fiennes just an excellent actor. What can I tell you?
Oh, no.
That's for my own amusement, that one, Vince. That's just for my own amusement, that one, mate. Don't worry about that. Anyway, although the irony of that topic would be his ancestor would be in the same fucking spot Bestia is in Argentina trying to get a fucking whatever. That's actually pretty good. That's actually straight fire. If you know the law, that's straight fire. Look it up. Look up what happened in World War II afterwards. Anyway, let's move on. So, the key thing now is it's Thorin's bad point. And I actually have quite a shrewd one here. Now, for this one, unless you have a good memory, you might have to pull up a Wikipedia and have a quick look at what I'm talking about. But I actually think an example of a team who you can't... Essentially, my bad point is this, Maui. I actually think Team Liquid's actual power level is hidden. Because here's the problem they've had, right? They haven't played many events. So what I want people to think of is, I believe, I'll just double check, I believe that this was their third LAN, Maui, with Shuhei, right? Because if you remember, they got him for PGL Bucharest, but they got him right before, so they went 0-3, didn't they? They just lost all the matches. Then they went to Melbourne with him, and that was where they came into the playoffs. And then now at Dallas, they didn't make the playoffs. Now, the reason why I say I think their power level is hidden is because the Bucharest event are right off because they barely had any prac and they lost to random no-namers. But then they went to the Melbourne event, and at the Melbourne event, here's what they did. They beat Virtus.pro, they lost to Vitality, fine to lose to Vitality, they beat MIBR, and then they beat Navi, and they made the playoffs and lost to Mongols in a close 3-game series. That's a pretty sort of... You could have a lot of positive feelings towards Liquid after that. Then at this event, they played against FaZe Clan with the stand-ins and won. They lost to Mouse. Again, fine to lose to Mouse. They beat Aurora. They lost to Aurora in the lower bracket, and that's it. Right? Essentially, who have they lost to that they're not supposed to lose to here? Those are... If you're losing to Mouse, Vitality... and Aurora, the Aurora ones may be on a line. Maybe we should say we'd want you to beat them. But Aurora themselves are a 5 to 6 team in the world. If I look at all the other teams, you're beating all the bad teams. Essentially, I actually think if you've had some different brackets and groups, maybe you'd be in all these playoffs. Essentially, here's my point. I'll almost use my hot take point made angle. I actually think on paper, if you put a gun to my head and said rank teams that if I do a tournament tomorrow would be in this order, I would go, Vitality, Falcons, Mouse, Spirit. After that, by the way, because Mongols and Aurora are playoff failures, I might even take Liquid to be a 5, a 6, or a 7. I think they actually are the 5, or 6, or 7. The problem is these results don't show it because you keep running into the top teams that beat you, and you haven't gotten the easy bracket ever, as far as I can tell. So, what do you think? I think my bad point is I think their hidden power level is my bad.
I got to jump in before Vince on this one because really quickly, I think I told you guys before we did the last hot take point made that I have a second point, but I don't think it's that good or fleshed out yet. It was that Liquid's the 5th best team in the world.
Here's the thing, though. I don't think it's that crazy a hot take. It would be in that sense, because as I say, if you fans would be like, "Where's the semis?" They've never made a big.
Yeah,
but you look at they play. Wow, this essentially, you're not supposed to beat Mouse. You know what I mean? Those are teams. If I tell you, you're not supposed to beat them.
They weren't, and they weren't probably supposed to beat Navi at Melbourne.
Probably not. No.
So they actually already proved that they could be arguably. I think the proof is already there that they're the 7th best team in the world.
I think that's reasonable.
But the problem is that they've now lost to the Mongols and Aurora, which then kind of firmly seats them in 7th in my eyes.
Oh yeah, by the way, the one other thing to say is I also do think if you're a fan who didn't follow the minutiae of Team Liquid, you're still thinking because of Bucharest, this wasn't that great a roster. I think this roster looks like it's good and it's coming online for me. They're heading into the major, I think, in good shape, mate.
The take for me becomes, and I kind of already made it on a previous hot take episode, was that I said by the major their T sides will look better than Mouse's because I think Shuhei will be a better in-game leader than Liquid given a little bit of time, just a little bit of time. But yeah, I can't. Well, for the bad point, it's kind of awkward because the thing is, at their Bucharest run, they lost to, I forgot the first team, but they lost to VP and the Mongols.
I think Legacy was the other one. I think it was Legacy.
Oh, okay, Legacy. Yeah. So that's the least forgivable one. Was that their first round?
I think it was.
Probably
It was their first match.
It was the first match they played.
Okay. So that one's of all their losses, that is the least forgivable, but it was their very first match with no practice. So I know it was a day or two of practice maximum. It might have been literally 0 practice. But yeah, that was the Bucharest run. But since then they've technically lost to Mongols twice. They've lost to Aurora now. Yeah, it's hard for me to put them higher than 7th, but I would pretty safely have them as 7th. I don't even know if that is that hot of a take. So But I just think like the Mongols and Aurora are much more solid as teams today, but it's what's to come for Liquid that's exciting for me with the roster, because they're playing teams that are very solidified. The Maus, the Vitalities, the Mongols, Aurora. I want to see in a month, or even give them 2 months. It's almost a shame that this roster came together 2/3 of the way into the season instead of being the roster that they had from day one, because I would then put money, yes, a Shuhei-led roster of NAF, Twist, Nerds, Ultimate is going to be the 5th best team in the world, if not better. I would have put money on that. But now we're seeing them in the Mongols and Roar. They have such a foundation that it's hard to unseat them with just a month of trying to figure out this roster.
So my only concern, I get where you're coming from, and I think also the landscape of Counter-Strike's in a bit of a weird place with Aurora and the Mongols in particular just being all over the place. Like, you never know what to expect from either of those teams. I would maybe even make an argument. I think Heroic might be better than Liquid right now as it stands, from what I've seen, going back to the point that you made earlier, Thorin. And my concern with Liquid is mainly around the idea of NAF. And I don't like to single out players, but NAF's performances really took a nosedive when Twists took over IGLing, and I don't think he's recovered yet. And I say that as someone that thinks that for the most part of his career, he was criminally underrated at how good he was as a player. He is just not performing at that same level. He's had a couple of maps where he's done okay under Shui, but too often he's going missing. He's not landing shots you expect him to land. I don't know what the reason for it is. That's the one thing right now at this moment that kind of puts me off a little bit of Liquid, but okay. I don't disagree with you, man. Like, when you read their names out, the fact they got Nerds, by the way, I think is a phenomenal pickup. Like, actually just an insanely good pickup. Their firepower is just immaculate, right? Like, it's just so good on paper, but NAF for me is a concern. And also sometimes Ultimate does go a bit missing. You know, like, he does have games where he's not landing the same mark. He's not having that consistency with the AWP. You often see him picking up the AK, and he can have impact similar to like how Zywoo often runs with the AKs as well. But for me, it's NAF. Like, that's the player. If they can get him on board, if he starts to activate back to the level that we knew before, I think they could be a top 3 team. Like, why the hell not? Like, you look at their plays, they've just got an incredible amount of talent. And Shui's leadership, we know from his mouse days how good he can be too. So that's my only concern right now as it stands.
Oh, by the way, one detail, because we do always forget this, but we will always reference it too. Technically, they also don't have their coach yet. So if they hire like a real coach, that could also be a final thing to level you up, you know. So essentially, I still think there's more to come from Liquid, sort of my point on that one. Anyway, all good. By the way, speaking of more things to come that are good and worth paying attention to, what about one of our wonderful sponsors? How about, if you need a headset or any sort of gaming device, Turtle Beach? I have the Turtle Beach Stealth 700 here. One of the things about this that's really good, by the way, is like the main feature of it is it has this like cross-play, which is basically they have 2 USB sticks you plug into 2 different devices, and then using one button, you can switch between them. So you can be playing the console game and then take a phone call. You could be playing on the PC and then have music on or something like that. You can do all sorts of things that are really easy. Just touch a button. It's also got like AI mic noise reduction. So if someone's talking, like, you don't have to worry about their voice not sounding as good. It's got all sorts of like really long battery life, and then also it's got the quick charge function. It's just a mega piece of hardware. Also, Turtle Beach, if you don't know, has like memory foam on the ear things, so it like fits around really nicely and snugly. I actually think an underrated detail is that if you don't know, it's not just a headset company. They have like racing controllers, flight sim, mice, keyboard. They have almost everything you can imagine. And actually, if you use our code, CSGO, the old game that was good, you will not only get 10% off, but that is site-wide. So head to turtlebeach.com, use the code CSGO for 10% off your entire order. That's 10% off your order at turtlebeach.com with promo code CSGO. After you purchase, they will ask where you heard about them. Please say Last Free Nation or Snake Banter or something like that. Let them know that we're the ones who sent you. Also, as well as getting the savings, stuff like this does actually help the company, and these companies do care about if you directly interact with them via the codes, etc. So by the way, it's an excellent headset. I've never been a big gaming headset guy, but for the price point, I think it's actually really good. They've min-maxed it completely. It's got some nice modern features, like I say. So thank you to Turtle Beach. Now let us go on to the last segment of the show, which is the ugly. So Vince, what is ugly right now?
Oh, this actually kind of sucks to say. It makes me sad, but I'm going to say XANTARES' career for me. Which I know is like a pretty morbid way to kick things off, but It comes from a place of admiration and respect. I've been casting obviously a very long time. I got to see XANTARES when he was first making his moves back in 2013, 2014, back in the Space Soldiers days. And a player that had so much ability, mechanical aim was up there with the very best on the planet. And as we sit here right now, here is a fact for you. He has never won an S-tier tournament on LAN in his entire career. When you think how good XANTARES is, how good he's been in the past, how incredible he still is to this day mechanically, that for me is just an unbelievable fact. He won one S-tier event, but it was back in COVID when it was basically a boot camp event back at DreamHack Masters Spring. That was all boot camp. They won against G2, I believe, in the finals, but he has never won an S-tier tournament. You go back to 2016, 2017, and you remember XANTARES at his absolute peak, at his absolute prime. He was up there with any player on the planet in terms of rifling prowess. He could entry frag, he could clutch, he could play with AWPs, deagles, anything you put in his hands, and he would make work. And he often would pull out these 1v4 crazy clutches. What's he done with his career realistically? He's now in an Aurora team, and this is maybe a bit of a side point, who are so disappointing for me, man. Like, how many times are we going to see them get into playoffs and just do nothing with it? Like, how can they not be winning like events or at least taking it down into grand finals consistently? It's just so sad, because I think at one point XANTARES, for me, and this is maybe a hot take, I think at his absolute peak, he's on par with Nico in terms of rifling ability. Genuinely, I think mechanically he is up there with Nico.
I feel like XANTARES is it's not, thankfully for him, he's not gone the route of tabseN, just where tabseN is chaining himself to a region that doesn't have enough talent, because it's safe to say Turkey has more people that are playing CS at a high level than Germany is today. So at least there's room for growth. But in terms of the lack of success in just correlation or relation to the skill of the player, the ability of the player, one of the most underachieving players. And I know some fans are going to hear that and say, like, what, like, he's not bad or whatever. It's like, you have to listen. It's like, it's that we know that the talent is there, or at least I know the talent's there. I know that he's one of the best aggressive riflers out there. He really can't, like, I like the take that he, on when he's in his zone, he can be up there with Nico, like arguably better. Like, his aim, to me, Nico's crisper in that he knows what the next fight's going to be. He's going to predict where it is, and he's going to always hit it, because it's almost like Nico has that low FOV aimbot. But like, XANTARES used to do things with the rifle on CT sides where his teams didn't need ops all that time. Like he's kind of almost like, he almost was in CS:GO doing that CS2 meta of, yeah, we'll just play 5 rifles on CT side, because XANTARES will play where the opper's supposed to be, like window on Mirage, and he's just going to nail people across the map with like first 2 bullets every single time. It was a spectacle, and I don't really even think Nico wanted to put himself in those kinds of situations. It did feel like, this is back when it was Space Soldiers and stuff like that. Like, no way he should be doing this. Like, this has gotten to a point where it's unsustainable. Like, surely this is unsustainable. And yeah, if he misses like those first 2 bullets, he's going to die. And sometimes he did, but there were some games where he didn't. And those games were the ones where it was like, like, that's the ceiling of this guy. And they're forcing him to play these roles, which are absurd. Like, it was actually off meta in that they would just run him as if he's an op at long range with a rifle. So incredibly impressive. To me, I'm disappointed that he never got an HLTV MV or a top 20 before last year, because in 2020, I would easily make the case that he deserved it over anybody that was 15th or below. I would say like Crimson 7 in 2020 or Brolin in 2020. Like, I thought XANTARES. So people and HLTV wants to give awards, obviously, for people for team success. s1mple got to number 10 that year for being the best player on Big. XANTARES was pretty easily the second best player on Big, and in some tournaments even better, but just ones that didn't have medals. So in 2020, for rating alone, XANTARES had a better rating than s1mple. He actually had a better rating than him, and he didn't even make the list where s1mple got to 10th. Like, that's, to me, and his fall off versus the best opposition did happen, and s1mple kind of kept on, which is another, which is probably the reason for it. But in terms of achievement, like they were the best team in 2020, like for 8 weeks. Like that's a pretty long time to be the number one team in the world. And reminder, for more like one or more of those weeks, it was a North American team who wasn't playing in the same competitions as Europeans. And so you could even argue that some of those weeks, like they were also number one, but it's just that EG got it or whatever the hell. Like, you know, it kind of it moved around in a weird way during that year. So I'm in terms of individual achievement, I feel like he should have more. He should have one more HLTV top 20 medal in my eyes. Beyond that, I don't know, like it just feels like it's one of those cases where it's like the Tabsons of the world or the K-Seratos where now he's trying to just make it work in his own home country. And I get it, but also knowing your own fan base, surely you should know why people are booing you in different crowds. That's my final take on this one.
The problem I have with this is, like, people will think that's like a crazy hot take from Vince. But first of all, he said at his peak, so you could even take in CS2. By the way, if you want to go back to like around the time of the PGL Major, like around a year ago, like that was when Nico was actually having some off games. That was when XANTARES was like arguably peaking in CS2. Like at that point, you might have actually been better than Nico. It's not even a crazy statement. Like that was basically m0NESY carrying G2, and sometimes Nico was just name value only in those games. So I would even say they're a good parallel for their careers, because what you're essentially wishing for, Vince, is that XANTARES had the Nico career, because both of them, right, I can tell you, people will forget this. As someone who played in CS 1.6, it will never be lost on me when you have a godlike player that comes from a country that couldn't have given them a team, which, by the way, that was the case for XANTARES, but not in CS2. So the difference is, if Nico had to stay and play in Bosnian or Serbian teams, you would have never heard of Nico, or he would have just been something like XANTARES was in Space Soldiers. He'd be the guy where you'd go, oh, it's that team that like probably can't win. Oh, this one guy's pretty good though, but we'll never know how good he is because he just is the big fish in a small pond. And then you'd never know if he'd be great. And so the problem is, because Nico did almost immediately get to the international teams early on, and then for his whole career has parlayed his way through international squads, he's had a chance to have the teammates and the opportunities to have a massive success that XANTARES didn't, and I would say develop more as a player. He's been at the absolute top of the game, playing with world-class IGLs, every sort of teammate you could want he's had at this point. XANTARES didn't. XANTARES spent the majority of the CSGO period of his career in Space Soldiers, which I will remind people was a way more scoffed team than this team now is. They were way worse than Eternal Fire. Like, that team was very one-dimensional. He was the win condition. Remember, they didn't have a Woxic back then. They had like that Paz guy was all right. They had some okay players. They weren't, by the way, super-duper tactical either. I don't think his team is either, but they were a lot more one-dimensional for me. And in fact, back then, they even used to be the sort of team where, I know like Cobblestone was one, they would just have one or two maps they could maybe fluke over you, and that was it. And if they fluked it, here's the difference. You'd never see them in a playoff. They'd fluke it and just ruin the tournament for themselves. They wouldn't then go on a playoff run. So back then, unfortunately, that mixed with the fact that online, without any pressure, he was showing his potential, means this guy got labelled as an onliner. But what people never understood was, that didn't mean you're shit on LAN. It's that he was better online with no pressure and playing versus tier 2. The issue is, when he went to Big, which was online, well, they already were thought of as onliners, and then Sivison was the ultimate onliner. So I think all of that made people think he was slightly overrated. But I actually think CS2 has shown, if he could have just done the Nico path in his career, if he basically had been, here's what's sad, I wouldn't even have gone as far if I hadn't have seen CS2 as like the Nico point, because I would have said something like, you know, he could have maybe peaked himself at like a Mouse international roster. No, after what I've seen in CS2, bro, he could just be in FaZe. Like, if he was available tomorrow and FaZe could sign him, I'd tell him, mate, let's ship some people out and get this guy in. Like, Carrigan would cook with this guy. And then lastly, the real reason why I do think his career is very tragic, because by the way, I agree, raw aim and like actual like talent, mechanical shooting, one of the best players ever to touch a rifle in CSGO and CS2. But I would just say this detail. I actually think he's even more of an ugly career, because now, inexplicably, he has a team which, look, I think tactically is where they're missing, but I'll tell you what, he has firepower. I actually think Aurora has like top 5 or 6 firepower in CS2. So suddenly he has the teammates. He has Woxic, the clutch AWPer, he has up-and-coming rifler Wakadia. Jota, I actually think, has just come in and given impact. The joke is, at the one point in his career, Turkish teammates are good enough. He's now got all these health issues and it's actually affecting his play. Like, this guy can't get a fucking break the entire time. time he had everyone on his back, and now he actually has his own times where, for whatever reason, he can't hit his peak level. So I would even say he kind of has a cursed career, mate. It's kind of brutal. And also, this is the one problem I have with his career narrative, is it's also gotten to the Tabson point where it's like, look, in theory, you could still go and join FaZe, but you're not really going to do that when you've gone all the way down this path, are you? Like, if you're Tabson and you turned on FaZe 7 years ago, you're not going to now leave and go. You've already committed to the German project. Similarly, this guy seemingly is committed to the Turkish project. There has to be a Turkish team that goes to the top. So essentially, I'm with Vince. This is almost like a eulogy to what could have been in an alternate universe. If we could go back in a time machine to like 2015, pop out and tell XANTARES, look, trust me, just go and join, like, I don't even know who it would be back then. Go and join like OG or whenever these teams come along, obviously. Go and join some international squad, Mouse, Hellraisers, go like Woxit, go join Hellraisers, and I'll see you in 5 years. This guy would have won tier 1 tournaments by then, mate. Like I say, he could be a FaZe player, he could be a Team Liquid player. In fact, if you go back a year from now, I think I even did an article where I'm saying I would say I would have replaced him and Navi with him. I'd replace fucking someone in FaZe with him. I'd replace someone in Team Liquid with him. He could have been in loads of these teams. I'm with you. I actually think it's a very good point. And also, especially because you put ugly, you didn't just put it as bad. Like, look, he made some of the choices. Some of it was he zigged when he should have zagged. It's just ugly because, again, if we did a thing, right, where we replay his career 100 times, there are many outcomes that end way better than this. I'm with you, Vince. He doesn't just, like, do better. He'd have ones where he could have won the major, he'd win trophies, he'd be eligible to be top 20 player. Yeah, essentially, actually, a lot of the hallmarks of a great career aren't there. So I guess if someone was a fan and they don't have the eye test and they didn't watch him at his peak, you actually won't appreciate how great he was. He was actually a lot better than even Aurora is. I'm with you.
Yeah, I think that's the key point why I put it as ugly rather than bad, because he has had some form of success.
Yeah.
And he's had longevity in his career. And to be very clear on this, like, I'm not saying he's not a good player. It's the absolute opposite. I think he's one of the best players CS has ever seen. He just hasn't got that success that I was hoping for when I watched him back in those Space Soldiers day. Like you said, he was playing with a bunch of players that you knew he was head and shoulders above, and he would have to go above and beyond to carry them out in that tier 2, tier 3 bracket. And I completely agree with you. Like, it is just kind of sad to see where things have gone. His career's not done just yet. You know, he's going to be 30 in a couple of months. He's still got some years. He's still got some time. Maybe
by the way, his longevity is also very impressive. He's this good when he's 30.
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
fucking sick, mate. He's not doing some IGL and shit. Like, he's fucking fragging people's heads off, yeah.
Even in some of the games they're losing, he's top fragging, he's second top with Arcadia. Like, the two of them are doing a lot of work. So it's not like his career's over. It's just up until this point of time recording this video, it could have been so much better, man. Like, he could have had so many trophies in the cabinet. And that, for me, is the really sad point, because the guy was just insane. And although I see the kind of comparisons with Tabson, I think with Tabson, and I think at one point he was a remarkably good player as well, he just turned to the IGLing role a bit too soon for me. I think he fell into that trap too soon in his career, and then he was fully committed to it. Whereas XANTARES has never done that. He's always been a star player. He's never tried to be an IGL. He's never tried to AWP. He's never tried to do anything else. He's like, I'm just God tier with the AK. Let me just go do my thing. And I've got tremendous respect for the fact he's trying to make Turkish Counter-Strike work. He's trying to inspire the next generation of Turkish players. That's awesome. All power to you. It doesn't change the fact that he's not won trophies. And that for me is the crying
And
shame.
one last thing I'll throw in there is, I even feel a bit cheated by the one time he wasn't in a Turkish team. Right, so you went, and it was COVID, sadly, because I know you only had like that first LAN. You had to do COVID, and you went to a team where you had to speak English, but it was a German team that was super tactical and had to grind all the time. Bro, that's. I hope he doesn't feel like that's what international teams are, because, mate, it wouldn't be like that in FaZe Clan. In FaZe Clan, they'd be super loose, they'd give you all the space, they'd call for you, you wouldn't have a million comms and all super complicated. I also feel like that might have put him off the experience, sadly, because I think that was one of the most extreme. If people don't know, even though, yes, Smoothie is an idiot, some of the things, if you hear like the stories of what it's like to being big, it's really hard work. They fucking work you in that team, and you have to know everything, your P's and Q's. Otherwise, Tabs and their coach and/or God B just are up your arse, mate. So I also feel like there's another missed opportunity. That is, one time he left the Turkish team, it was for like a weird period that was only online and only in Big Clan. I'd have liked to have seen, like I say, like a Mouse or one of these sort of squads that could have taken him on and used him as like a star player with an international lineup. Right, let's keep it rolling. Maui, what is your ugly point?
My ugly point is that I'm still doing this saga of kyousuke leaks when I'm not trying to be a leaker, but now I'm just getting
what
so
more
many
info
sources.
do you have for us? Come on.
Yeah, so I have more info. Okay, that's basically it. I'm just using this portion. And
if you're an editor from play.gg, you need to start writing down now, transcribing it at this point in time. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. an extremely okay. So this is I'm gonna say this as plain text as possible. Okay, from an extremely trusted anonymous source that's told me Spirit did do a lot to try to keep kyousuke on the roster, and in my eyes, I'll actually, you know what? I'll add my own opinion after. But so they tried to keep kyousuke with Spirit, but kyousuke wanted actually out, and he wanted to play with Falcons. So then that was 100% clear to Spirit, the organization.
Okay.
And then Spirit obviously negotiated for good money on the sale of kyousuke, because of course they do. Okay. Now injecting my opinion. So that's okay. So that's in like everything I've heard about this whole kyousuke to Falcons thing. It's been a couple different details of why he's going there, but this one is where it's just like, okay, so the org is letting the player say where he wants to go. And in some ways, in the past, I've respected that. So I'll try to keep that where, I liked when what Jack was allowing people from Cloud9 to go to other rosters when he knew Cloud9 was kind of on the downturn. Jason Lake allowed Elige to go to FaZe. He didn't just kind of keep him in contract jail if he knew he couldn't build a championship roster around him. I feel like those circumstances are a little bit different because Spirit is a championship contender. They just won an S-tier tournament. In fact, they've won 2 S-tier tournaments in this season already. So I would have wished that they were able to nudge him a little bit more to stay on the roster and play with the main team instead of, and take your pick of who he would replace. But instead of like Magix or Zontix, really. Or even if they think it's possible to change IGL from Chopper and move kyousuke into some of his stuff, whatever. It doesn't matter to me. You just keep Donk and Shiro and you make it work with the other guys. But now knowing that this is kyousuke's desire to play with Falcons, I mean, it just kind of it's just a narrative changer, okay? It's just a narrative changer because I felt like there was a lot of speculation about roles and Holly not being able to maybe insert him because he doesn't think it would work. I think that at this point that side of this needs to be dropped. I think that whole angle of Holly being the conditional statement that if Holly didn't want kyousuke because he thought roles were an issue, that's not a conditional statement. There's no truth to that statement anymore. So that's where it is now. That's where it is now. Okay, that's it. I'm just the messenger in some of this.
Any thoughts, Vince?
Man, like kyousuke, I obviously he's a very solid talent. I don't think anyone's going to doubt that. Like he's not proven at the tier 1 like top sort of level just yet, but I have no doubts that he can go there and perform. I kind of look at this in a different way, though. I feel really bad for Tessus, I think, in this whole situation, because realistically, it's already been rumored it would be for Tessus, and it's hard to believe that Magisk would get replaced with kyousuke. Like obviously Magisk is got a very strong connection with Zonic. He plays like role positions like Pit on Inferno, for example, etc. And so I don't really see that change coming in. I just feel bad for Tessus, man, because like I think he's actually been one of Falcon's best players. Like when Nico and m0NESY have had some rocky moments, and before m0NESY when Dexter was in, Tessus was lighting up the scoreboard quite a lot, having a lot of impact. Yes, he's also had rocky games, don't get me wrong. It's not like he's been flawless, but I do feel kind of bad because also like how long has this current 5 had together as a team? It just feels like this revolving door continues in Falcons where they're not really giving like this 5 a chance to show what they can do just yet. I'm not sure if the change is going to come about after the major, if it does come about, obviously, but we'll get a chance to see what Tessus can do there with Falcons. But I just look at it from his perspective, like seeing Dexter get replaced has to be rough for him. And then even though he's performing well and he's having some really good games, still potentially being on the chopping block anyway, can't feel good for his prospects going into the major. So I guess we'll see if it affects his performances. And then the other element of it as well, as I said at the start of this, I don't doubt kyousuke's ability as a player. I don't doubt that he is very talented. We've seen him play quite a lot now with Spirit Academy, and he seems to be doing really well. But whereas m0NESY coming in is a guaranteed upgrade over Dexter, like he's proven he was carrying G2 kicking and screaming, especially after Nico left, we've not seen kyousuke at the top level. We've not seen him play against the top teams, the Vitalities, for example, of this world. And so it's a bit more of an unknown quantity and an unknown element. That's kind of the point that kind of concerns me just a tad for Falcons, because if kyousuke goes across and it doesn't work again, what then? What do you do at that point if you don't start getting, success? You can't beat Vitality. You can't stop their streak of games.
There's a couple of angles I have on this one. So first of all, because here's the real problem I have with this move, is I actually think this move is a lot less easy to forgive competitively than almost anyone else joining Falcons, because no one else joining Falcons had the option to be in Spirit and then maybe be number one. You know what I mean? Like, that's the weirdest part. Is like, that means to me, like, unless there's some bizarre reason, like I prefer Monacy over Donk, I can't see what reason you would have to join Falcons, except this is the one time I do think you can say the person is doing it for the bag. The reason why, to me, it never made sense before to say Nico was doing it for the bag is, as far as I know, I don't know that Nico was getting the bag in G2. I know to all of you, it's like, but G2, no. As far as I know, he wasn't getting like the kind of salaries that like a Ziwu or the top player. As far as I heard, he had a good one, but he didn't have the absolute insane one. So if he wants like a better roster, maybe he didn't like Stacks and Hugsy, and he wanted, like, there's other reasons to do it and get the bag. My problem with this one is, because if you could potentially join Spirit, maybe they would be number one then anyway, and then you'd be in Spirit the same org. But if you don't know, the part that people don't talk about publicly, it's obviously considered like politically incorrect to say, is I would guess Spirit's salaries are way lower than the other big squads. Like, if maybe they give Donk a good salary because they don't want him to go elsewhere. If you're Chopper or Zontix, so I don't think you're making megabucks. So if that's a factor, I do sort of think this means kyousuke was like, I want to just go and get a mega salary. Like, why not I just go and get like 50k a month? By the way, if you're a kid from fucking Russia, that's crazy money, bro. Like, that's instantly life changing from month one. Month one would be way more than you could make in it. Like, your dad won't make that in an entire year, and you're making that every month. Meanwhile, I won't even speculate what the salaries are within Spirit. But I could see a world where they're like low five figures a month, like, a 10k, 12k. That wouldn't be, by the way, for Russia, that's even pretty good money. Again, like, that's very legit. It's just that isn't 50. And also, that isn't it. The other thing about Falcons people forget is this. If in a weird way, to join Falcons, you have to have a massive ego, because what you have to believe is this: it is Real Madrid, but I'm one of the players that gets to stay in Real Madrid, and then they put the other superstars around me. So if you think you are like Monacy, Nico, or kyousuke, the reason you join Falcons is because even if this roster doesn't work, they're going to sign another player too, and then they're going to sign another player after that, and eventually you're going to be on like Real Madrid. You're going to be winning the Champions League, mate. You're going to win the major. You're going to win everything. So I even think this isn't that much of a diss to. I don't think this is like kyousuke saying, I don't believe in Spirit the team. I think he's saying, if I have to pick between two teams that could be at the top, why don't I take the one that has mega bucks? Why don't I just go get 50k? So I actually feel like it might be, you know what? You all said it was Nico. No. Apparently kyousuke is fucking Bilbo Baggins over here. Apparently he's the one looking down at that bag like, why shouldn't I have it? Why shouldn't I? And Monacy too. Maybe he's on that shit, isn't he? So there you go. By the way, I do think this is more telling on his part, if that's true, than it is for Spirit or Falcons. Like, it sounds like he's just choosing to do this. And again, by the way, I have a hard time saying no to him, because what is all of youth culture about now? It's all like, flexing money, and I've got all this cash, and I'm fucking famous. That you're going to get that if you go to Falcons, mate. That's everything that all the young people want, sadly. So it's hard to tell him when everyone else is doing it. Don't do it. But, stay at your team and all. So unfortunately, if this is true, it does make more sense of it. I can see why you put it in ugly, though. Definitely, it isn't bad. It's just a bit ugly, isn't it?
Yep.
Okay. Well, speaking of changing jerseys and shirts, one last sponsor. Into the M, one of our best sponsors. They make this wonderful t-shirt I'm wearing. This is like just a plain white or cream tee. I'm actually colorblind, so I can't tell. But basically, this is one of the ones that's like a little bit more heavy duty. It's not super thin. As you've seen in past ones, I have the ones where it was like print designs. Those are quite thin and really comfortable. I actually have like a plain black tee that's really, really comfortable and cottony smooth. One of the best things about Into the M is they have loads of selections of clothing. Well, they're not just even t-shirts, but of t-shirts. They've got a million print designs. They've got a bazillion of the plain white ones and different color ones. You can also get all the bundles. Like, if you get 3 of the plain tees, I think it's like roughly $50 as a bundle. If you get 3 of the print tees, it's roughly $60 as a bundle. And if you use the code on screen, whenever this runs, they always do a 10% for our customers, right? IntotheM.com/LFN always gets you 10%. But right now, until the 1st of June, they are running a Memorial Day sale where items on the site different items, obviously, can be up to 70% off, which will stack with our 10% code. So if the item you chose was 70% and you did intothem.com/LFN, you would get an extra, you would get 80% off the item. So I actually think it's one of the most excellent examples of a sale of this content. Also, loads of our viewers have bought from these people before. We've all gotten very good remarks. They're enjoying the relationship. So at the end, obviously let them know that we sent you, use the code, etc. Pick something out for yourself for Memorial Day. Like I said, they've got loads of apparel on there. I've actually enjoyed it all, and I have found the build quality is way better than other t-shirts I've enjoyed in the past. Right, the last point of the show. This is a really simple one. It's a really wide open one. It's one that people will want us to talk about. I'm purposely putting this in ugly, Vince. The ugly point is what people's expectations appeared to be at this Dallas event around s1mple playing in FaZe. Because, bro, I'm a massive s1mple fan. People will know this. I actually would have maybe even expected a slight step slower than he was here. I thought this would be the warm-up event to get him to the major. And then, I think the joke is it's actually only the last sort of map or two that he looked bad. The first game where they lost, he looked fucking awesome. The second game, he was actually genuinely just good. Like, if you watched the second series they played and took the nameplates off, you would just believe that was a top 5 or 6 AWPer in the world, mate. It was legit. Yeah, he fell apart at the end, as FaZe did as a team, and gave up that game to Heroic. But I actually think, what I want to ask people for real, we were talking about this on Hot Take Point made yesterday, is like, what do you expect s1mple to do after all that time off? Like, was he really, like, I feel like for real, fans were being a bit stupid, and they were doing that thing where it's like, if like Ronaldo misses a penalty now, and you're a Messi fan, you go, see, that proves he wasn't the GOAT. It's like, the GOAT debate about 10 years ago, they're all washed as fuck playing in like America and Saudi, mate. Like, so I feel like people actually wanted from match 1 him to instantly be battling Zero and Monacy for like #1 in the world or something. Because again, when I watch these games, like, what more did people want from the first event? Like, that's why I put it as ugly. I'm not going to glaze him and say he's like already a top 10 player. Of course he isn't. But at the same time, mate, bearing in mind the real job he had was replace Brokey, who was underperforming. I think he did it. I think, like, in fact, at the end of this event, I said it, people are going to think it's copium. My first thought when this event ended was, being a Skulls as a pure stand-in, put Rain back in, load up the major, let's fucking go. I'll take this FaZe roster, mate. And also, as Maui's famous point goes, the way you know s1mple has crazy cultural impact is, 1, did you see the viewership of that first game? This motherfucker's carrying the entire world of CS. Like, him playing an opening round matchup was the sort of viewership you'd get for like a Cologne semi-final or something insane. And then secondly, like, just s1mple being back, this is why I can get why the fanboys overreact. It does make you suddenly, like, the gravity of what that he brings is crazy. In some ways, we've never escaped the event horizon of s1mple. Like, the second he steps back in the server, you have to watch. Who couldn't? So what do you think, Vince? What do you think of the expectations, where FaZe, s1mple, where they at? Where's it all at, mate?
Yeah, I thought it was unrealistic, especially considering, as you touched on, like, obviously you have Skulls there as well, so it's not just a case of s1mple's filling in with the full core FaZe lineup. It's like you got 2 stand-ins effectively, with s1mple obviously going to be taking part in the major and everything. So that's going to have massive consequences and reverberations in terms of strategies and tactics and how the players play off each other. Plus, Rain is known as being one of the best teammates out there. Every single person that plays with this guy says how great he is to play with, how easy he makes things. And additionally, Carrigan has literally came out after Elise joined and said, right, Rain is playing an entirely different position now. He's going to be more like this flanking lurker type within the team. So Rain not being there is a really big deal on a multiple fronts. I do think it was unrealistic and unfair to expect him to suddenly be like the CS GOAT all over again. I think it is fair, though, to have some doubts and maybe some concerns. Does he want it enough? Are we going to see a s1mple that is all in? Because he's had a couple of, dips in the pool with Falcons in the past that didn't really pay out too well. I personally got a lot of flack after not having too much confidence in him at the Copenhagen RMRs when he was playing with Falcons. I said I wasn't sure that it was going to magically fix them, and it didn't. So I think that it's fair to have some reservations about can he get back to that level. But this event isn't the one to judge him off, because, like, realistically, what you expect FaZe to win the tournament? You expect him to do it with Skulls and s1mple, like, stepping in without Rain? Like, that's an absurd ideal to have in your mind. Of course they're not. And I agree. Like, he landed a really sick 4K on Mirage. And it was like he hadn't skipped a beat, he hadn't missed a moment. So yeah, I think it's positive. Get Rain back in. Let's see what this team's got, because I'm excited, man. I think this could be the shot in the arm they needed. Have you guys seen the documentary, by the way, that FaZe released with Carrigan?
It's actually really good.
It seems like so much of it was mental. It was like the CS depression that was creeping in, and having a player like s1mple, sure, in the past maybe he's been like, I really despise this word, but like toxic to the environment that he was playing in. I think he's a more matured guy now. I don't see that happening. They also made a bit of content where they were having a jab and like a laugh at it with him and Liege, where he was calling him bot when they were playing in duo queue together, which was actually kind of funny. But yeah, he could be the shot in the arm, the real energy that they've been lacking for the last 6 or so months, because no one's going to doubt that this FaZe team, with Carrigan's leadership, when you have veterans like obviously Rain alongside him, and you have great talent like Elige and Frozen, with s1mple can't win games. Of course they can, but maybe just like temper your expectations a little bit, guys, because s1mple's not going to just come back and suddenly be the cure that FaZe has been looking for. It's going to take a bit of time.
I mean, yeah, the expectations for him are just ridiculous, but that's what happens when you're the Michael Jordan of CS. When you make a comeback, everybody expects that you're just going to drop 30 kills, carry the game, be the best player ever. It's completely unrealistic, but even worse is the fact that mostly ZywOo fans coming in at s1mple, and they always have to run this, like, you know, attack on him not being great, where it's like, I mean, ZywOo wasn't that hot in the beginning when he switched to an English-speaking lineup. So, and he wasn't that hot in the very beginning of CS2 either, like the first handful of series. So, I mean, people are going to always be reactionary, jump at it. I mean, admittedly, I would probably be too in some regards, in some aspects. You know, if he was really bad, I would probably be down on him. But this was a completely serviceable tournament for him, and yeah, he didn't have the best time in their third matchup, but I mean the first two were versus BC game. I mean, he just smurfed on him, and versus and I think that's also pretty telling that if you can basically smurf on a team that is never really pinned at doing much at an event, but just like the last place team, and they are not giving you a hard time, you at least know you're a cut above in terms of your skill set. So he proved that to me, and Skulls was, I'll run a little bit of a defense for still. I mean, I think Skulls sold that A bomb side on Mirage so many times that s1mple caught off guard that he was getting shot in the side, when it's like, isn't my A anchor supposed to let me know that this is even possible? Like, yeah, he looked confused though. I mean, I'm not gonna say that he looked as almighty as he was in the past. That would be ridiculous. He did miss some shots too in Mirage that, you know, he otherwise felt like he shouldn't have. They felt like they were more on the side of, like, I'm not gonna say sitters, but they were definitely on the 6 to 7 out of 10 difficulty shots, which he used to hit a lot. But I'm still incredibly hopeful for him to do well here, and for Rain to be of more assistance than Skulls was when he's playing in tandem with s1mple. It's a fun, ugly point, because the fans are always just going to be rabid when it comes to him on both sides. He's one of the most polarizing figures ever in terms of viewership, if you really want to get into it. Like, the playoffs of Dallas, which happened yesterday, the first round at least, the Mongols Aurora game, which is, 2 of the top 6 teams in the world, and then a Falcons Gamer Legion game, which went to map 3. The peak of that stream in terms of viewership was on the Twitch stream was 59,000. Okay, for s1mple's coming back game, it was over 150,000. It almost 3x'd in an opening round matchup what a playoff matchup that went 3 maps did. Like, that's where it's just like, it's to say that you could have a lot of opinions about s1mple as a player, but I would go as far to say objectively, him being in Counter-Strike is good for the sport. Okay.
Agreed.